Okay, good afternoon or good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, December 9th, and at this point, our last regular scheduled meeting for 2024. So I would wish to begin tonight by acknowledging that we are having this meeting on the traditional territories of both the Sooke and Shaanu nations. So council, I'll turn your attention to item 3, approval of the agenda, and I have received a request for delegation item 5.1 that the time be extended to 6 minutes instead of our usual 5. So I'd like to request that council adopt the agenda as presented with the delegation allotted 6 minutes of time. Moved by Councillor Beto, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have meeting minutes here for adoption under 4.1. There's the November 25th regular council meeting and December 2nd special council. Moved adoption by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Bateman. Any questions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously as well. So we'll move straight into item 5.1. We have one delegation, which is our sign bylaw. It's a presentation tonight by Ebony Logans. Welcome. And when you start speaking, our staff will put 6 minutes on the timer for you. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Council. My name is Ebony Logans, resident of Sooke, former City Councillor, current School Board Trustee for SD 62. Firstly, this presentation has come up at a time quite randomly. I'm not running for council in the by-election. I just want to clarify the timing and intention there. I also need to preface my presentation with a trigger warning because unfortunately the issues I am addressing tonight are sensitive, especially to the trans community and their allies. In the spring of 2023, on behalf of a group of local 2S LGBTQ+ folks, I submitted a BC Human Rights Tribunal complaint against Barrie Marine's sign that read, "Get them woke, Bud Light's out for target practice." Seemingly innocent, to be honest, as many of us Sookies have been out in the bush shooting at beer cans for a good time, but the sign actually referenced a video where the cans of Bud Light, which had images of a transgender person on them, were shot at. Because it promoted shooting at a trans person, the sign encouraged acts of deadly harm to a protected group, which caused many people in Sooke to feel that like their safety and the safety of their loved ones was violently threatened. The process of the complaint will not begin its initial stages until spring of 2025, 2 years later, because the volume of complaints is too high for them to manage these days. My request of the BC Human Rights Tribunal outcome is that Barrie Marine is no longer grandfathered into, but must comply with the current Sooke sign bylaw. I don't believe this is an unreasonable request. Why did I submit this complaint? Because it sparked so much fear that people who are directly affected were afraid to come forward. I'm sitting here thinking, why is this on me? How did I become the person taking action against this? It will be me next who's attacked on the sign when the tribunal letter is received by the business. I'm not strong enough to deal with that, but it could also silence me as an ally, just as it has my friends in the queer community. I know each of you. I love and respect each of you, but I am here representing the business owners, parents, children, and visitors to ask, what are you going to do about it? Because what I've heard so far is that there's nothing you can do. I'm hoping that the silence from our community's leaders will end, that some action will begin, because the silence and inaction are, and I know unwillingly because I know you all well, but they are complicit and supportive of this spread of hate and fear. I also know, Mayor Tate, that you've spoken out against this and other acts of hate in our community as part of your open and closing statements at council, to the news, but it's not enough. The words are not enough. We need support in the form of tangible action. So I wanted to provide 5 options to begin the brainstorming process. First, potentially join with SD 62 to host their Pride Parade in Sooke. Did you know that this year the route had to be changed at the very last minute because it was deemed unsafe for our children to walk through our public parks for fear of being bombarded by a hate group? That's not okay. But if we join together, we can mitigate that. AVICC and UBCM are coming up. Can you submit a motion asking the province to better resource the BC Human Rights Tribunal so that complaints like mine don't take 2 years to address and cause 2 additional years of harm? I also encourage you to converse with your colleagues at those events to see how they actively counter hate and discrimination in their communities. The business Barrie Marine has made alterations to their sign as defined by the sign bylaw. I will share my communications with staff to you, and I encourage you to follow up with staff regarding how these changes should trigger a removal of Barrie Marine from being grandfathered into the bylaw and exempt them from having a freestanding sign with interchangeable copy. I know it's difficult to host and staff committees, but it could be important to have a space to create a series of tangible action items along the lines of the Charter of Compassion or anti-hate in general. This is probably my worst idea, but I'm throwing everything out there. Install a rainbow crosswalk. It will be vandalized, but who cares? That is the point. You will be showing support and demonstrating your dedication of human rights in our community. Without actions like that, without your willingness as leaders to take a stand, human rights in our community are being silenced, and the voices of people who put their lives in danger are being amplified. I hope that when this issue becomes heightened in the spring, when Barrie Marine receives a letter from the tribunal, the municipality will be there to support us in a way that is tangible, positive, caring, and action-based. My hope is that is something that you can commit to tonight, that some positive action can come from council, from the leaders in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Logans, for speaking tonight. If at all possible, if you could share your remarks with us, and we took some notes on the action items, so yeah, just so that we catch them, and then what we can look to do is a business arising towards the end of the meeting. There's other correspondence that we've received as well, so we could sort of pull all those together and then look at what our next steps is. But thank you very much for having the courage to be here tonight. It's appreciated. Is there any questions from anyone else for our delegation this evening? You can wait because we'll have business arising. Okay. All right. Thank you. And you were under the time, so we're ahead of schedule. It's amazing. No, it's all good. Thank you. Okay, I'll move into item 6, which is our public question and comment period. So I'll just ask members of the public if anyone has any items that they would like to speak on this evening. Yes, and if you could please introduce yourself and turn on the microphone. We have about 2 minutes per speaker put aside. But we'll just need you to turn on the microphone. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors, for this opportunity to speak tonight. It's been a long time since I've been here. I just want to follow up a little bit.
Could you introduce yourself, Ms. Logan?
Thank you. Nikki Logans, community member. I would like to just follow up a little bit on what Ebony Logans has shared with us tonight. She specified the one community being threatened by signs and actions in our community. But I want to bring your attention to the fact that there have been other bigoted messages and signs that have been posted, and that in a general sense, we need to take action. Inaction is not okay. As Ebony said, it can be seen as complicit, and it is complicit. So we need, I want to ask that you, I want to bring your attention to one small piece that Ebony mentioned, and that is our Charter for Compassion. As you know, you're aware that our community has been designated by the International Charter for Compassion as a compassionate community. Some of us in this room were involved in developing an action plan, a compassionate action plan. And that work is ongoing. There were 5 areas of action in our community. The one area that we have not really been paid attention to is about awareness and public action and celebration and communication. Lots of work has been happening in terms of affordability for homes and healthcare, and all kinds of other actions are going, and the community is working to implement that plan. But I think we can put some more effort into communication and advocacy. Yesterday's, I just wanted to read a little bit from the charter, which we have agreed to as a community. We've embraced that to speak violently out of spite, chauvinism, or self-interest, to impoverish, exploit, or deny basic rights to anybody, and to incite hatred by denigrating others is a denial of common humanity. We must work together to treat human beings without exception, with justice, equity, and respect. Yesterday at the parade, lovely event which celebrated our Christmas traditions, I thought, wow, a parade, what a great idea. Lo and behold, in our charter compassionate action plan, we have a long-term item that speaks to a peace parade. And I'd like to rename it a compassion parade, if I may. And that might be something concrete, something actionable that we can support, or indeed any action that we can support, some of which Ebony has mentioned. But that is something in our plan that was intended for a long term, but I think we can't wait any longer. That we can work together to make intentional action to let the red light mean stop.
We're like a minute and a half over.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
Sure.
Yes, thank you for listening. I think you've got the gist of my request.
Thank you very much. Other speakers this evening? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peter Stokoe. I live here in Sooke. I wrote to you, Mayor and Council, 3 weeks ago regarding the Little River crossing. And I see that Councillor Bateman has actually brought up my letter for discussion later on in the agenda this evening. So I just wanted to flag the fact that I'm here, and I certainly don't want to inhibit your discussion on this topic, but I'm available if there are any questions or points for clarification that you would like me to address. I also note that it's 2 weeks now since the invitation for tender on this project closed. And I was rather expecting, or perhaps too hopefully, that there might be on the agenda this evening a point about the awarding of the contract for this project. My understanding, and I think it's still on the district's website, that the contract for the project will be awarded this month. So I would like to just check if that's still the case, if it's the plan is still that the contract be awarded this month. And if not, what other arrangements are going to be made? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I'll just ask staff now in terms of process-wise for that contract. Are you able to answer that at this time?
Yeah, through your worship to council. So the original tender was posted and it was original close date in November 21st. The tender was extended twice, with the first extension to the 26th, the second one to December 4th. So that was 5 days ago that it closed. It's being evaluated right now, all the compliant bids, and it will be presented to council at their first regular meeting in January, which I believe is January 13th, with a recommendation for award.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for
I would note that the project needs to get underway early in the new year, because the site preparation needs to be done in January and February before the bird nesting season starts in March. So this is going to have to be a very quick turnaround. In my experience, usually after a contract is awarded, it takes a while for the actual contract to be signed, and then the contractor to get all his equipment or her equipment and personnel on the site to begin the work. So all that has to happen in a very short time period, I would note.
Noted. We'll make all efforts. And I think what has been evidenced that the work at Ravens Ridge and both with charters is the crews were on site very quickly after council did their pieces. So I know that our staff will be working within those timelines. So We'll
Okay.
do our best. Thank you very
All
much
right,
for
thank you.
coming forward. Okay, do I have any other speakers here? Please come ahead.
That working? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lindsay Harvey. I am a resident of Sooke. I also work at the University of Victoria. I teach in the Faculty of Education. And I'm also here to talk about the sign at Barry's Marine. When the sign that Ebony brought up regarding the trans community was was put up, I organized a small sit-in, or I don't know if you remember, it was in the paper. I was interviewed by Check News, something like that. Our family decided to be public about being a queer family and having a trans child who was eagerly excited to try and read everything that's out there. You know how kids go through that phase. And they did read that sign, and they had a feeling that something was off about it. And we had to have that conversation with them. And it was very, very hurtful. But when I organized that sit-in, I was overwhelmed by the amount of community members who pulled over off the 14 to come and tell me how happy they were to see the loving presence that we were offering. Because Sooke is a place of love. And generally, I feel quite supported as a member of the queer community, and my child is quite supported. But I would say we counted about 100 people or so pulling over or honking or coming by, walking by, bringing us. The church across the street brought us some water and sodas and things like that. We only had one negative remark the entire 6 hours that we sat there. So I know this is important to the community. And I just want to echo once again that doing nothing is complacency. Doing nothing is siding with that status quo and make Sooke appear backward and uneducated. My friends who live outside of Victoria and see those signs are wondering why I stay here. And I have to encourage them and be clear that it's not all of Sooke, but it makes us look awful and it makes it unsafe for us. And that was the overwhelming comment I received from people as I sat on the side of the road was my kids take the bus and they have to sit here and look at those signs. My kids drive by and read those signs. People are deeply concerned. And so I know not everybody will speak up, and not every queer person has the privilege to speak up. And we've received lots of hate over our last 5 years of having a trans child, but we're pretty privileged and we're pretty comfortable speaking up. And I hope that you will be too, because you have a lot of power and privilege at this table. Thanks.
Thank you. Do I have other speakers this evening?
Hello, my name is Aaron Hambley, and I'm one of the owners representing 2043 Maple Ave. I'm here to answer any questions if you guys have any. I just wanted to quickly just give a little extra onto the rationale letter. We're small-time builders. We don't have a whole lot of capital. We've run into significant financial burdens with trying to get this project up and running. The interest rates have substantially gone up since we took on this project 3 years ago. I think we were somewhere around 2.2% financing, and now it's astronomically high. We also ran into higher cost of building. And one of the other issues that we're having too is the prices of what we were going to sell these things for. We estimated these townhouses. We were going to put some really nice 3-bedroom townhouses, 3 stories that were going to provide 17 units for people to live in at an affordable rate. What we thought was around 700. They're probably realistically worth now around 650. So if you add up the cost of the financing, about $500,000 for this big of a project, plus the interest rates of $50,000, or sorry, the cost of $50,000 drop over 17 units, that's $800,000. So it really is we're in a position where we're really struggling to get this project going. Financing has also been denied at one point when we had it secured, but once things started going up and the ratios no longer made sense, the banks didn't want to move forward with it. So right now we have one of the owners living in this property that can be used for so much more housing for people. We're excited. We want to get this thing going. One of the opportunities we did come across was this CMHC program where they will give us a mortgage based on it being a multi-unit, and we have to have a covenant on that with them saying that we won't sell them for 10 years and we'll hold them as rentals. But one of the stipulations was they said to us, in order for us to qualify, we have to meet certain ratios. And with this covenant that is registered, this covenant that prevents us from selling the properties for a certain amount of money, which is really, really low. Because I think when they registered this was way back when the market prices were like 200 and 300,000 for something. So the covenant doesn't even make sense. So we really just are like asking to if you guys could remove this covenant, we'll be able to qualify for the CMHC housing multi-unit program where we can actually start putting this project to use and providing houses for the community, which we're excited to do. Otherwise, we're just sitting on it.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Hambley. Maybe what we'll do when we do get to that item on the report, thank you for introducing yourself. We'll bring you back up if council has questions beyond what staff provide.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers here tonight? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tyler. I'm a Sooke resident here. I just want to I'm going to talk to you guys about the Barry sign topic that's gone up and just say that I fully support the council doing anything and everything in their power to speak out at the very least against what's going on here. I run a small preschool in the city. I'm married to that wonderful speaker over there, and we have queer children, and we've become known as a bit of a safe space for queer families and children who are gender nonconforming and stuff in our preschool. And so I've had a lot of families who know of this sign, and it makes them feel unsafe in our community, is what I hear. And it's not just, as we mentioned, it's not just LGBTQIA stuff. There is consistent things on that sign that are harmful to our community. And I think that what worries me is that when we do nothing, we'll start seeing, well, we are seeing more little pieces of hatred popping up in our community. We're seeing spray painted hate signs on kids' parks and things like that are getting out there, and people are going out, they're dealing with them. But when we let a big sign like that put out hatred, it allows others who might have those feelings feel like it's a safe place for them to start putting them out there too. And we need to stop it clearly and quickly and without reservation. And so I just want to say that I support everything that's going on here, and I hope that the council can find anything and everything they can do to make sure that it's known that that's not going to be accepted in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Any further speakers this evening?
Good evening. My name is Catherine Strongwind, and I'm a resident of Sooke. I'd like to speak on two items if I could. One of them being item 8.3, the Economic Development and Land Use Development Committee Terms of Reference. In alignment with TRC's call to action number 92, I'd like to recommend a change to the membership composition to consist of 4 members of the community and at least 1 seat designated for Indigenous peoples, plus the 3 members of council, plus the 4 non-voting advisory members. And I'd like to suggest a 2-year term for community members to ensure consistency and continuity as much as possible. The second item I'd like to speak to is the high-level report on 7044 Maple Park Terrace. I appreciate that there is an overall effort to address the issues raised by the report. However, I'd like to know what steps have been taken by the district, if any, to ensure water protection in Sooke going forward. And perhaps that's why Councillor Bateman asked for that to be on the agenda again tonight. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you to the 3 Sooke Lions Clubs and the district for the awesome Santa Parade on Sunday. It was great to see all the families out to enjoy the festivities on the new, safer route. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking tonight. We'll take that comments into consideration when those items come forward later tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Malcolm McNaughton, resident of Langford, developer here in Sooke and in the area. Owner's representative for Sooke Loggers, Inc. We are the owners of the property that is in question at on item 10.1 on your agenda this evening. I just wanted to say a few things about that, if I could. One is that there's a significant amount of park area on the property. In 2022, there was a new covenant that was put on the property, and that covenant actually requires almost 20,000 square meters more than what was originally done in 2010. And so we actually have significant amount of park up there. We have significant trails that are being built. We have a playground, a parking area. So there's significant benefits to the community that are going in with that project that I don't think a lot of people are aware of that is happening. The other thing I just wanted to mention that since the district has staffed up in the last 2 years, we have been engaged with staff on a regular basis, both on site and here at the office. And we've been able to work through things as they come up. And we have good lines of communication, met with them face to face just last week. And that is ongoing. The other thing I want folks to know and understand is that we have a team of professionals, professional geotechnical engineers, civil engineers, and qualified environmental professionals, biologists. And they are the ones that are assisting us in putting together all of the applications and responding to all of the comments and questions that the staff have. And so we rely on them. They are professionals. They have professional designations. They have professional associations that they are responsible to. So we'll be here to answer any questions that you have later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being here this evening. Anyone else remaining in the gallery to speak tonight?
Hi, I'm Julie Budgeon with Corvidae Environmental Consulting. I live here in Sooke, and I am one of the qualified professionals he was talking about for the Viewpoint project. We started on that project in August 2024. As he said, there was permitting and everything in place prior to that. Right now, just to speak to some of the comments from the letters previously, we have provided a detailed reclamation plan for the new park space. So there's the existing park space that has been left forested with the second growth Douglas fir forest stand. And then in addition to that, we've provided reclamation plans with detailed planting, quantities, maintenance to recreate the Douglas fir habitat. I believe the reason it was cleared was for grading purposes and stuff in such a challenging site. In addition to that, we're working on the trail network in the area. So we've got a trail builder and we're connecting to Firwood Park, plus going up and around to Broom Hill. And we're working on all the associated environmental protection measures in place for that. And that's everything I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for introducing yourself. Any final speakers here tonight? Okay.
Wonderful. Good evening. My name is Anna McLean. I'm a resident of Otter Point. I moved here 2.5 years ago with my son, who was 6 months at the time, now 3. Looking to grow up in a small community similar to how I did in the Kootenays, connected to nature, supported by family and community around us. I'm here to speak about the Barrie Marine sign. I drive past it in and out of town every time I go. The particular sign, the one that we're referencing tonight, it broke my heart when I saw it. I don't know who my son will become, but whoever that is, I want him to live in a community where he knows he will be loved and respected, and that there are models showing them how to do that for others. So I'm urging council to step up and publicly show not only our young people, but our entire community what it looks like to show that respect for everyone, so that regardless of who we are or how we express ourselves, Sooke is a beautiful place. The sign makes me question if I want to stay here. I've heard of parents keeping their kids home when the Pride Parade happens. That's their choice. And yet I wonder if these little pieces are connected and reinforcing a narrative that allows this bigotry and hatred to continue. So again, just anything that can be done to demonstrate that the members of the LGBTQ community are welcome here, are loved here, and supported here, I would urge you to take. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking tonight.
Chad Bryden from Langford, one of the owners of the Sooke Loggers that owns the property at Maple Park, 7044, item 10.1. Just wanted to speak to the letters briefly. Just I would like to mention that there's many inaccuracies within those letters. And back to what Mr. McNaughton was saying earlier, in 2010, the rezoning proposed 47,000 square meters or 23.5% of park area. And in 2022, Covenant, which is what we are building now, requires 65,000 square meters or 35% of park area, which is 18,000 square meters greater than the original amount of parkland that was required at rezoning back in 2010. The total amount of reclaimed, restored, and newly built park area is 9,900 square meters of park area. So there still is an additional 8,400 square meters greater of untouched parklands than was originally proposed in 2010. And some of the newly built park areas will be a playground, an actual parking lot, many new trails, bridge within the trail so that the trail can go through Furwood Park and not through current private owners' access. That it's been historically, that's how it's been used. And just like to say that we're working in close connection with the district staff, our QEP who we met tonight, the province. We're following all the rules and regulations. We're completing all the trails as per the covenant, and we're really looking forward to the completion of our phase 4 and phase 5 lots in 2025. And yeah, we're here if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for attending this evening. Is that everyone in the gallery that wishes to speak tonight? Okay. We require another motion. Okay, I'll ask council just to pass a motion to allow for an additional speaker, moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bateman. All in favor, and that's carried unanimously. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Steve Anderson, resident of Sooke. And just a real quick comment. This is be an odd kind of personal thing, but yeah, I was just inspired by what Ebony Logans was saying earlier. And it's about the courage to speak up and speak against things. And many years ago, I was quite fearful about speaking up and seeing bad things happening around me in the community and personal life and work and in the school district and stuff. And there's 2 incidences with my oldest child in grade 7 getting mocked regularly the whole year by a teacher about her Christian faith at the time. And then a few years, and I didn't speak up. I didn't go have a talk with this teacher. And a few years later at Edward Milne, I only want to hint towards who it was, a person in authority at Edward Milne refused my oldest child, who is queer and trans, refused them and their classmates to do a storyline about the gay and lesbian community, a love story. It was deemed as inappropriate and controversial. And I was heartbroken. This is just a few years ago, not very long ago. And I was heartbroken, but I chickened out. I didn't go say anything. And I won't let anything like that happen again, not for my kid and not for anyone else in the LGBTQ community. So yeah, done my blab. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay, I believe that captures everyone in the audience that would like to speak tonight. So thank you everyone for your comments. And we'll be addressing them as we move through tonight's agenda. Moving on to item 7, which is our consent agenda. The recommendation would be that the following items on the consent agenda be adopted by general consent. There's the correspondence file, though I'm aware council may wish to pull items. So Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, I would like to pull items E, 2396 Mountain Heights Drive, G, public sign, and I, also a public sign.
Okay, and those to go to the next regular scheduled meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so E, G, and I to go to the next meeting. Are there members of council looking to withdraw correspondence? Okay, so I'll look for a motion then to receive and file remaining items, moved by Counselor St. Pierre, seconded by Beddoes. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. So that brings us to item 8 in the report section. The first item up is 8.1, a covenant amendment for 2043 Maple Avenue South. Over to staff, please.
Yeah, good evening, your worship, council and members of staff and the public. This is a report coming to council on 2043 Maple Avenue South. The purpose of this report is to consider amendments to an existing covenant to that property. The subject property is 2,842 square meters and contains a single family home. The property was rezoned in 2008 from the R1 zone to the RM3, now RM2 zone. And as a condition of the rezoning, there was a registration of a covenant, 219 covenant, that required a number of things, including road improvements, accessible and affordable housing. The new owners, as the delegation said earlier, is looking to develop a 17-unit townhouse development. In the existing covenant, there was a requirement for 10% of the units to be wheelchair accessible. Instead, and the applicant's looking to amend that requirement under the accessibility section to 10% of the units being constructed as adaptable. The difference between those two is one, the first option, or the one that's existing right now, is the developer would be required to provide the accessible design to the building right from the construction. So the unit or units would have to be fully accessible in terms of width of doors and heights of counters and all the requirements that go along with that. The suggestion is to make the units adaptable. So this is the idea that the unit doesn't necessarily have to be fully compliant from the get-go, but has the ability to be adapted if need be at a later date. So it makes it easier to make accessible in the future if that's the need or the requirement of the people that buy the unit. The next issue that the applicant or property owner is looking to address is the issue of affordable housing. So there is a clause in the affordable housing section of the covenant that says that 10% of the units be sold with a base price of $222,000. As the property owner has expressed, that was done back in 2008 when property values were significantly lower. So obviously, having waited this long to do the development, prices in the market have changed considerably, and so that's quite an onerous requirement given the state of the property prices today. What the property owner is suggesting is a payment of $3,000 per unit for the new development, which is in line with what we're asking for every other development in the community. And so staff are in support of these changes and are suggesting that council direct us to make amendments to the covenant on the title of the property.
Okay, thank you very much for the report and for your additional comments and for the applicant for introducing himself earlier. Council have any questions of staff? Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yes, thank you for that report. I don't have a problem being realistic about the price. I mean, that price that they have quoted is from 2008, and there'd be a lineup down the street for a place for 222,000. And I don't mind the $3,000 a door to compensate for that. I have a little bit of problems with the wheelchair accessible and adaptable. Because to me, it seems to me logically that if you make it wheelchair accessible to begin with, it'd be a lot cheaper than going in after the fact and making it adaptable. Because you can make anything adaptable, just a bigger chainsaw and all those things. So I'm a little confused about that, but maybe staff could enlighten me on what do you mean by adaptable? I mean, can you elaborate on that a bit? Is that a fair question, first of all?
Yep, just hold for a second. What we'll do is we'll hear from members of council and then I can invite you up to speak to any of the queries that come up. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. That's okay. Go ahead.
Through your worship to council. So the kinds of things that adaptable speaks to is things that are not possible to adapt after the fact. So for instance, you might you could look at things like having access at ground level. So, you know, there's some homes where it's just the design of the home that you have to go up several flights of stairs to get to the front door and there's no other access at ground level. Making things adaptable is, you know, having an access at the ground level so that is possible. So it's not to say that you're making everything accessible up front, but that it's possible to be adapted to be accessible in future. So that's just one example, but and perhaps the property owner has more details to that. But
yeah, your worship, I'd like to have a few more details of what that means.
Yeah, we'll do a round from members of council and then we can cover everything at once. Okay, and there was Councillor St. Pierre.
Through your worship to staff, I guess it's a similar question on, but it's really about the difference in cost, because it strikes me that adaptability is more or less a design consideration as opposed to necessarily increasing the cost of construction, which is awesome. And I was curious if there might be an appetite on the part of the applicant to increase from the 10% to a higher, say, 20%. If it's a design consideration that would increase the cost of construction, because that would actually allow more people who need that type of home to have the option of, you know, having the ground floor access and so on and so forth.
Okay, did you want to go ahead, Councillor Pearson?
Not related specifically to this process, but somewhere in our plans, we are talking about the affordable housing bylaw that are we any closer to actually having an affordable housing bylaw?
Or maybe a policy.
Affordable housing policy, sorry.
Yeah, through your worship, the policy right now we're doing some work on sort of the number crunching around how much it costs to produce affordable housing. And that's going to help us to figure out what the right number is. Right now, we're using $3,000 as a ballpark, which I don't think we're going to be too far off from what we've found out so far. But we do want to have justification for why we're charging a certain amount per unit. And so that study that we're doing is going to help to put some numbers around the realistic cost of developing affordable housing in the community. So it is coming. It's not complete yet. There's still some number crunching going on in the background.
No further questions. Thank you, though. Councillor
Bateman.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really curious about this covenant, and I believe it arose out of there was a housing report done back in 2007, and among the recommendations were this kind of progressive approach to creating truly affordable housing in Sooke. And I guess the key point in your report is that we do not have staff capacity to actually complete the terms of this report. I mean, theoretically, you could just change the price tag from 220 up to a more reasonable number in today's market. But is that accurate? We do not have the staff capacity, for example, to select individuals within the community on the basis of relatively low income to occupy that.
Through your worship, not have the capacity. I think we could have the capacity. It would be a lot of work. It would mean dedicating staff time and resources away from other priorities. I've had some experience with this, and it's a lot of work to create legal agreements that outline exactly how a unit like this will function going forward. So if somebody's going to sell the unit, how much more can they sell it for? Can they, if they do renovations, you know, are they going to get paid back for those renovations? You know, like there's so many variables and things that go along with these affordable housing units, and it all has to be written. And then that, as you were saying, also goes back to the idea of, you know, how do you choose the people who's eligible? Do you have a list of people? It's a fairly onerous, it's possible. But in this case, we've got maybe 1 or 1.7 units that would be eligible for affordable housing, and to set up all of the, you know, necessary bureaucracy and legal agreements for that would be a lot for staff to take on, for sure.
Are you aware? I know it wasn't so long ago we had a similar covenant, which we amended with a low price tag that was done in this day and age. I think on Maple as well. Do you have any idea of how many of these kind of covenants are out in the community at the moment?
Through your worship, no, I'm not aware of how many there are out there.
Okay, I think that's good for now.
Councillor St. Pierre.
Sorry, I was actually just hoping to maybe get an answer on that cost of adaptability versus, you know, the full on. So are we looking at design, or are we actually looking at making significant changes that would increase the cost of the unit?
Through your worship, yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that when you're talking about accessibility, there's a lot of interior design to the building itself, the width doorways, the turnaround space within bathrooms. So it can be fairly expensive to do those types of retrofits for a household.
Okay, I'll invite the applicant forward to comment further, please.
I apologize for speaking out of turn. Yeah, so from my understanding with all this too is, and I spoke with Lauren, the senior planner, and it was also her suggestion to start to make this application to change this, because what we're trying to do is, like, we want to have a product that will help people and get people moved in, but we don't want to limit our buyers either, because if not everybody's wheelchair accessible, right? So the idea was, like, when we were going through the plans and talking to Sooke back when we first bought the property, they were like, well, you'd have to put in lifts, because we would do 3 stories, so you'd have to go lifts on each floor. But then you have these lifts in here that are taking up hallway space, and it just doesn't make sense for some buyers. They're going to come in and look at it and be like, no, we don't want it, and they, you know, just pass on it. So we don't want to limit people to be able to buy it, but I agree, it's a wonderful idea to give them the ability to make it adaptable. So the things like the lifts, what we would do is we would make the walls structurally strong enough to hold a chairlift on each level. We would frame in the doors to be able to be opened up easily so that you could have wheelchair accessibility. We could make it easy for the switches and stuff to be lower so people can have access to that. So those are things that can be done through the framing stages and the building stages. But when we physically put the equipment in and are bound to that equipment, now we got damage to the property. If someone wants to take it out, it's just a waste of money. It's a waste of construction cost. And it can just be better used to make the units nicer, right? So I think it makes sense to make it more adaptable than it would to actually physically put the equipment in and make it so that it's, you know, short counters and stuff like that, because no one's going to want that, right? So, yeah.
Any follow-up for the applicant? Just to ask, since you're here, so all of the units then, are they all designed to be?
3-story.
Okay, through all of them?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any consideration, like on the main level to have a full bathroom with a walk-in shower or something?
I mean, that's possible. Like it just comes down to layout. We have, you know, parking requirements that have to be met.
Okay.
And certain other things in the land, and you have to give up 10% of the land for green space, right? So we are going to be limited to what we can do. So honestly, 3 stories makes the most sense. It doesn't mean it can't be handy capable, right? For people to be able to access where they need to go. And that's why you would put, you know, an elevator, or not an elevator, but a escalator thing up on each floor so that they could get to whatever floor they need to, which is very common. So.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes, then Bateman.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm still in a quandary about it because you know, when you say it's adaptable, it's still going to turn off those people with accessibility problems. And I'm not necessarily like, for me and my wife, looking for a place to move. We certainly you know, probably could afford one of your units without much trouble, but in order to do all those things after the fact, be pretty pricey for people. I can't see it'd be a turnoff. So, I mean, if you're offering wheelchair accessible, I think you would attract another group of buyers that you would not necessarily attract.
Can I comment?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
No,
Devil's advocate. I'm also a realtor too. So like I understand, you know, the buyer's pool and how big it is and like limiting yourself. So I agree with you, but you're better to have the ability to make something work for everybody than just work for one group of person. And so there's certain things like I've had clients who have unfortunately 2 children that were digressing in their health, and they need full system cares where they, you know, needed the tracks to lift them in and out of the bathtubs and all this stuff. There's funding that they get for that. There's government funding that will help them get set up for that. So, and also too, like if I had a buyer come and look at that property and be like, hey, I'll buy this, but I need to have a lift put in, I'd be like, okay, it would be silly for me not to, right? But it's capable, it's ready. It's all I have to do is just install the equipment. It's not that more money to do, right? But it's going to still give me the ability to sell it to somebody else who may not want that. And it does make sense. I will advertise it as handy capable, or, you know, like
yeah, in
accessible.
2008, you were willing to deal with it as wheelchair.
I didn't own the property.
Different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that helped.
Yeah, and then and the other thing too, by the way, is apparently this is old language. So when I was talking to Lauren, the senior planner, this is why she suggested it. She's like, this doesn't make sense. She's like, we like, this is, if you look at any of the new covenants that are registered for this, it says not capable, but like able, you know, it's so.
Okay.
So I'm asking for something that is already being done on other properties.
Thank you. I have more clarification with that. Thank you.
Perfect.
For it.
Yeah, no worries.
Councillor Bateman had a question too?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming to Sooke and considering us. We love Sooke. I'm curious, so the CMHC situation means you will be renting those units for the first 10 years.
So if we go with our program and we do that, yes. So basically what they say is they look at a lot of factors, right? So they need to make sure that the ratios and the numbers make sense. So I have to be able to rent them for a certain amount of money. I have to have certain building cost in place. We all have to qualify for that as well. So there's a lot of these different factors, but they have a covenant, and one of their covenants, because they do offer you a reduced rate than you would normally get as a conventional lender. with CMHC backing, which is awesome. But the issue is they want you to make sure that it's going to be set aside for housing for 10 years as rentals. So yeah, that's their program. And it's great because that's what got us thinking about how we can remove this covenant, because we want to get this project going. We just physically can't. We just don't have the financing to do it. And one of the partners is just living in it, and it's just a waste of opportunity for people to have housing. And we're excited. Like we built we did a really nice duplex project where we subdivided and got 3 units or 3 duplexes, so 6 units in total on Beaton Road, and did a fabulous job, built beautiful product. At the time, we thought it was one of the nicer finishings for Sooke, so we got nice young families that moved in, and a couple of retired folks. And it's like, for us, it's a passion. We're excited about it. We haven't been beaten up too bad yet in the markets and stuff. So, we're really gung-ho. We're excited. We want to do something with this. It's just, we can't. And if you guys deny this, we're going to be sitting on this again for a long time.
Let me throw out a couple more questions.
Sure,
now,
please.
you're a realtor, and I've mentioned
Yes.
this in previous council meetings, that Sooke has been approving a lot of rentals. We're up over 650. So
Yeah.
we've gone from a very small stock to a significant amount. And I think the CMHC program, and I think there's some sort of forgiveness of the GST on rental, possibly. Anyway, now my question is, do you not see a need for owner occupied stock within the community?
I do as well. So we're going to look at both options again, because I think by removing this covenant will also give us an opportunity to go back and have the banks reconsider us as applicants and put forth to sell them first if possible. So we'll do whatever option it would to move forward. We just want to move forward.
Yeah. My final question regards, you mentioned 10% green space and amenities. I don't think we'll see the development permit under our new system here. So tell us about what kind of amenities you'll.
It's still early.
Too early,
Yeah,
okay.
they basically just ask us to put in green space. That it's a dedication, so they're like, we need a certain portion to be green space. So we're still working those details out. We've got plans drafted up and first looked at about 2 years ago, but then it got put on hold because of everything that was going on.
Step code 3 EV chargers, the whole package.
Yeah, we would have to put EV chargers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I'd like to move.
Okay, hold please. We will do that when it's just council sitting.
Sorry.
So I wanted just to check to make sure there's no other follow-up for the applicant, and then he can take his place, his seat again. All good? Okay, thank you for being present tonight.
Push the button.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
I'd like to move the council authorize an amendment to covenant FB 190524, attachment 2, registered on the title of the property legally described as Lot A, Section 3, Sooke Land District, Plan VIP 44435, 2343 Maple Avenue South, in accordance with the terms of the draft covenant, attachment 4.
Okay, that's moved, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Would you like to speak on it?
Yes, I appreciate what the applicant is trying to do. I appreciate the language, and the previous applicant had some elements of the covenant that just don't actually match our present reality. So it's good to bring it up to date. I like that we're looking at rentals, that we're looking at increase in density. I would suggest, because I've done renovation work, I did renovation work for 20 years, and honestly, the stronger doors, the built out headers, so you can actually increase the size of the door, all those things, when it's all framed out by the framing crew, doesn't cost much. If you can increase from 10% to 20%, you'll just have that many more units that you can actually advertise as adaptable. I would suggest that that's not necessarily a bad thing to consider if it's not going to balloon out your costs. Because from a renovation point of view, tearing out all your walls to redo everything, it's just a no-go. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Pearson?
Yes, familiar with this property, close. And it's in an area that is developing. Sidewalks, lights, things are coming along. And it's been zoned I think for 2 years or more. So looking forward to the project going ahead. So thank you.
Councillor Beddoes, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to thank the applicant for coming forward and explaining in a very articulate way, and changed my mind. Thank you.
Councillor Bateman?
Well, sure.
In the microphone.
Yeah, I'll just note, yeah, welcome. I hope this works out for you. 159 units are now anticipated along Maple Avenue South. So good thing we have a frontage program, and Yeah, we're getting the density we requested.
Okay, thank you. I'll speak in favor of the change here. It has been substantial time that has passed since the original covenant was put in place and things change. Recommend just exploring options to see what you can do. Maybe there's a half and half option. With some of the others, anywhere where you can reinforce walls in the bathrooms or in areas where someone may need a grab bar are good for many different scenarios. Could be a skiing accident on Mount Washington that could come up for somebody to get through. And then I think just having the ability to market it as like, welcome to Sooke, this is a forever home. And then as a family's needs change over the years, they can remain in the home and make the changes as they go forward, as opposed to not being able to find a place to age in place. Wider parking stalls are always a good thing for access, whether it's for a child seat or a senior in a wheelchair, just to get in where those spaces are possible. So just as you go ahead and design the space, it's something to look forward to. So we wish you well in this and hope it goes well. So I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay, we'll move on to 8.2, which is appointments to external committees and commissions. So council, we were expecting this. Some of these are related to the work that Councillor Lajeunesse had, and others are just due for renewal on appointments, as some of our external appointments are for just 1 year at the time, and some go for the term. So I think also in speaking with staff, we're just looking to find a landing place where they can all rest to make it easy, because over the course of the term, it changes, new things come and go. And so from a tracking perspective, it's good to, we're working, appreciate staff and corporate services just looking to have things sort of located in one place. So there's quite a list here. So procedurally, I guess we just sort of work through them one at a time. Does that work for everyone? Okay. So the first one is the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee. And my understanding, Councillor Bateman, is that you have hit your term limit in serving. Is that right?
Well, I have. I could explain here that the terms of reference do refer to 6 straight years. And then it opened up to other councillors. And if no one wants to take it on, I would be able to continue.
So are you just finishing year 6 then?
I'm finishing year 6.
Okay, understand. Okay. So I'll ask the members of council present, is anyone looking to take Councillor Bateman's place on this committee? Okay. So the recommendation then would be that council appoint Councillor Jeff Bateman as the Districts of Sooke representative to the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee for a 1-year term, commencing January 1st, 2025 and expiring December 31st, 2025. Would someone move that, please? Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Beddoes. I missed that. Oh, Saint Bateman. So Councillor Bateman would be correct. No.
That's possible.
Okay. So you're accepting, as I understand it. Okay. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. For the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board, is that the same situation?
No, there's no term limit.
So you've been appointed for the term, or is this the alternate? Oh, they do. Okay. Okay. So would you like to continue with the library?
Well, I could.
Into the mic, using the microphone.
I could continue, as I said last year, but you know, it's a fascinating portfolio. If someone wants to take it on, I would welcome.
I was gonna say I'd like the alternate too, but.
Okay. Okay, I'll bet.
Creepers, Mayor. Thank you. The reason being, you know, it just happened last night when we were at the Santa's parade and speaking with the library group there. They were just so pleased to get if there's people that came through that library that had never been there before and had the opportunity. So I'd be excited. So I'd be willing to do that if you're all right with it, Councilor Bateman. Okay.
Okay, and then within the, we've also, our staff has also attached just the meetings schedule, so you're aware of when it meets, and that's all good.
Okay, I don't know what it is, but see.
It's just Saturday mornings in Nanaimo.
You're pretty good, yeah.
In Nanaimo still, right? Oh, it's virtual now, okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's something I could handle with my busy schedule. Sure.
Okay, we'll add it in. So we'll start with that one. So that council appoint Councillor Al Beddoes as Sooke's representative to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2025 and expiring December 31st, 2025. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor, please. This carried unanimously. Thank you so much for your commitment and all the work that you've done on the library board.
Yeah.
And perhaps you may have a time once we determine the alternate to meet just for a bit of an update and some knowledge transfer because you've done a lot of work there. Okay, in terms of the alternate then, we're looking for an alternate. Do we toss a coin? Change it? Okay. So we'll go with Councillor St. Pierre then? Is that you? Okay. And that council appoint Councillor Tony St. Pierre as Sooke's alternate representative to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2025 and expiring December 31st, 2025. That's moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Bateman. All those in favor? Sure.
Last year,
In the microphone.
I drove Dana LaJeunesse up with me. So the two of you could go up to that AGM. It's a great opportunity to meet everybody.
Okay, so recommend you do that. Recommend you carpool and connect as appropriately. We'll leave it with you anyway.
We'll figure it out.
We called the question on that, right? So that's done. Okay. The next one is the Tumuk Treaty. It's actually been renamed to be the South Island Reconciliation Advisory Committee. The local government side is the South Island, or CIREC as the acronym, with the treaty nations as the Tumuk side. So it was to differentiate between the two sides of the coin. I have been involved with this and would like to continue if council is willing on this. Okay, so then it would be that council appoint Mayor Maya Tate as Sooke's representative to the South Island Reconciliation Advisory Committee for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2025, expiring January 31st, 2025. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And I believe right now Councillor St. Pierre is the alternate, so would like to continue if that works, okay? And that council appointed Sooke's alternate representative to the CIREC committee for a one-year term, Councillor St. Pierre. So that's moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Beddoes. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The next up is the Sooke Region Historical Society or Sooke Region Museum. This is the one vacated by Councillor LaJeunesse. Okay, Councillor Pearson, great, okay. So that council appoint Councillor Kevin Pearson as liaison to the Sooke Region Historical Society for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2025, expiring December 31st. So that's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. All those in favor, and that's carried unanimously. We have the Capital Regional District Arts Commission. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'm the alternate to former Councillor LaJeunesse, so I'd be happy to take that on.
Okay. So that council appoint Councillor Jeff Bateman as a commission member to the CRD Arts Commission for a two-year term commencing January 1st, 25 and expiring December 31st, 26. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. So in this case, is there a need for an alternate? Does it have alternates?
Doesn't say it here.
Those are always an option, I think, as we saw in the CRD.
Some of them are optional and some are required. Does Corporate Services have an answer?
I don't. No, so the CRD did let us know about this current vacant appointment. But my understanding, if you were the alternate for this body, my suggestion would be to appoint another alternate.
Okay. Counselor Pearson is willing to be that alternate. Okay. So we'll have council appoint Kevin Pearson as the alternate commission member to the CRD Arts Commission for the 2-year term. That's moved by Counselor St. Pierre, seconded by Counselor Beddoes. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, next up is the Capital Regional District Regional Water Supply Commission. And are you the current? So would you like to take?
Yes, please.
The position? Okay, and would you like to be the alternate? Or yes? Okay. Okay, so we'll have that council appoint Kevin Pearson as the commission member to the Regional Water Supply for the 2-year term commencing January 1st, 25 to December 31st, 26, and Councillor St. Pierre as the alternate to the Regional Water Supply Commission. Okay, moved by Councillor. Well, we'll have Councillor Beddoes move it and Bateman second it. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next up is the Regional Housing Trust Fund Commission. Okay, so Councillor St. Pierre has expressed interest, if that's good with everyone, so that council appoint Councillor Tony St. Pierre as commission member to the Regional Housing Trust Fund Commission for 2 years, so January through to December 26. So it's moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Beddoes. All those in favor, it's carried unanimously. The next up is the West Shore Arts and Culture Center Intermunicipal Committee. She wouldn't be here to accept, so no. So Councillor.
Well, I don't know anything about this one. Well, I think that's only fair. I mean, she is a counselor. She's not here to put her hand up. She may have wanted some of these others, so let's see if she'll do it.
But part of it is also the meeting schedule. Like, I don't want to appoint somebody that may not be able to meet the meeting schedule. And I've received nothing in writing to suggest interest. So I don't know. It's
Okay, failing the voluntold approach, I will take that on since I am the CRD Regional Arts Commission. And
they kind of tie together.
This committee is related to the Judith Cullington and that group that's forming a Colwood.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that formed following a delegation when we received the groups. So it'll be that council appoint Councillor Jeff Bateman as Sooke's representative to the West Shore Arts and Culture Center Intermunicipal Committee for a 1-year term, commencing January 1st, 25, expiring December 31st. So that's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Beddoes. All those in favor, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And then I'll just ask staff for clarity because we were also looking at the South Island. Pearson.
Under District Arts Commission, second bullet. The council appoint Kevin Pearson as the alternate.
Okay, so that would be further up on the arts. Okay. Oh, no, that's fine. I just couldn't quite follow the bouncing ball. So that'll be up in the top, Kevin Pearson there.
I have that, yes.
Okay. And then in terms of the South Island Prosperity Partnership?
My understanding is that was put under new business.
Okay.
As in our district records, that wasn't an appointment that was made formally through council. So I didn't include that in the staff report as presented, but it's on the agenda under new business as requested by the mayor.
Okay, so we'll get to that a little bit later. So I think we've covered off all of the appointments. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
I just have a question about the Regional Housing Trust Fund. Was that something that Councillor Lajeunesse or former Councillor Lajeunesse was dealing with? Or I haven't seen this. I attended one meeting about 2 years ago, but I didn't see it as a regular appointment. So I'm just curious, is there more information about this particular commission that I can
It
access?
doesn't meet frequently, so sometimes because I've been appointed to this in the past. So it's at the call of a chair and when there's an application. So sometimes it was regular and then it would go quiet.
Okay.
So that is potentially why that's the case. So the best thing probably to do following this is just to reach out with CRD staff for a briefing.
Thank you.
because that would be the best source of where things are at.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that takes us through all of those. Thank you, staff, for your work on that. We'll move on to 8.3. And this is a report here for the various committee structure. Go ahead, Ms. Bagnall.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council. This report introduces a draft terms of reference for the proposed Community Economic Development Committee and the proposed Land Use Development Committee as directed by council at the October 31st meeting. In addition, upon review of the associated policy, staff identified the need to update policy C0007 and have presented proposed amendments, attachment 4, to this report seeking council's approval of the policy amendments. The substance of the policy amendments has been included in a schedule inside the staff report, as well as an attached redline version for council's consideration. In regards to the terms of references, we are seeking council's adoption of the proposed reference as presented or as amended as council sees fit. Additionally, we are looking for council recommendations to the mayor to appoint council members in accordance with the community charter, as these are standing committees. If council adopts these terms of reference, staff would then proceed to advertise the request for interested individuals to make applications to be considered to be appointed to these committees upon council's direction. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, questions from members of council. We did hear from a member of the public just about an amendment that could be considered to the terms of reference. So, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Now, you've come forward with a pair of standing committees, which is clearly staff's preference, and you haven't given us an option for select committees. Can you explain why you've chosen the standing committee route?
If I may, there was at a previous meeting, I don't recall exactly when, where there was a desire that there would be more members of council on the committee rather than just one. So in some part, I don't want to answer for staff, there was, then we would need to look at the standing over select. That can all change, but that in order to have the ability for more members than just one, that would be the way it was.
Yeah, in reading the note, I think select committees must include at least one member of council. Is that a maximum one, or?
Thank you. And if I may answer your previous question as well. First, I'll hit the new one. So that is correct. Select committees must include at least one member of council. And so that wasn't actually the rationale for why this is before council. In accordance with the community charter, it defines the difference between standing committees and select committees. And so it is staff's view that the most appropriate body for this is a standing committee because it stands the test of time. It stands throughout decision making and acts as somewhat like the committee of the whole. It is a flow through committee. A select committee is for one issue. So if you were looking into a one issue topic like the OCP or the MRDT tax, that's a select issue where you could have a select committee look into that and provide a report back to council. And as soon as that report is back to council, the select committee would be abolished. A standing committee is an advisory committee that continues. It's a continuous body that flows through reports up to council. And that is my understanding of the intent behind these committees.
So, yeah, thank you. So you're undoubtedly familiar with our latest round of committees were all select committees. Right. And I'm looking at the terms of reference adopted November 9th, 2020 for the Land Use and Development Committee. And they weren't given just a single issue to look at. They were topics for consideration: secondary suites, town center development, shoreline waterway interface, development incentives, and so on, another half dozen. So what do you think of these terms of reference? And you've clearly moved in an opposite direction.
It is in my professional expertise and recommendation that those committees were not in accordance with the legislation.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
Okay, so I just want to raise the item raised by the member of the public in terms of it's general, it applies to both about looking, do we accept the terms of reference as they are in terms of public appointees? Or is one specifically set aside for someone who identifies as an Indigenous member of this community? Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, I have a question that relates or follows up on that as well.
Okay.
And that's also with regards to the previous terms of reference. I noticed that the terms of reference that we have now, at least for the land use portion, basically specify selecting people that have development experience or, land use development experience and so on and so forth. And that's fair enough. The previous membership criteria consists of 9 members, including, and they were very specific, but that would actually allow, for example, to include, potentially an Indigenous representative. Because right here you had, land development community, home builders community, business community, agricultural community, environmental climate change community, oceans and fisheries, affordable housing, member at large. I'm wondering if the new selection criteria for members actually is better, or if this type of would this work within a standing committee to use this type of criteria?
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, if I'm understanding your question correctly, the proposed terms of reference before you for both committees are essentially broad in their scope of community membership. Essentially, they just need to state a case for interest and not necessarily fit into an exclusive bucket. My experience in past committees is if you narrow the scope of membership to select, you may not have enough membership of the community to fill your community membership position. So that was our approach, is to have a more general statement about community membership.
Okay. And sort of a follow-up to that would be in terms of, Indigenous representation, often people are just burnt out and are not available to do those things or may not be interested. If we actually insist on having someone, we may not be able to fill that position, period. And that sort of follows what you were saying. If you're very specific, you may not get the person at all. And then what do you do then? So I'm not sure what kind of language could be used to help with that sort of thing, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
And through the chair to our corporate officer, would it be onerous or would it defeat the purpose if we added the category of Indigenous, like as something that we want to have on the committee? Like, I'm trying to, I really believe in that idea. I think it's a great idea. But it's reflective of land use in our community. So how do we because I'm not troubled, but I'm just trying to think, how do we wordsmith it to make it appropriate?
Absolutely. I might suggest, speaking to Councillor St. Pierre's note about if we potentially couldn't fill that seat, now it's taking up a vacant seat that could have been on the committee. What I might suggest is that one appointment, and forgive me, I'm spitballing here, to amend the terms of reference to indicate of one of the community memberships be have preference to Indigenous applicants. And then in the case where council did consider applicants and there was no Indigenous applications, council could then still appoint a member and fill the seat. But in the case where there was an Indigenous applicant, that they would get preference for one of the seats to ensure that we're doing our due diligence to meet the intent of council to fill that seat in that way.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
I like the direction that Councillor Pearson is taking this into, because I think that also allows us to potentially wordsmith some language around other expertise that we might want. Because one of the things that I'm concerned about in terms of not just optics, but just getting, a really good recommendation from a land use body. The previous body actually had representation in most things, except I got to say oceans and fisheries was tough to fill in. It's tough to get that one, but it really did provide a well-rounded discussion around whatever came to the table. If we actually had added language around looking for builders, business representatives, agricultural, and so on and so forth, along with a preference for finding someone that's Indigenous. I think that would actually, at least for me, cover a lot of ground.
Okay, so where are we looking to make an amendment here? There's a draft in front of us, so it hasn't been adopted yet. But we are looking at, let's see, the first one is to adopt the amendments, and then the second part is the terms of reference for community development is presented. And then the appointment and similar with land use. So procedurally, why don't I just go through these in order, and then when that item comes up, we can look at it. That might make it more clear. Because the first one is that council adopt the proposed amendments to the committee structure and function policy C0- or CO-007 is presented, attachment 4. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so that's the package as a whole. I had a few additional questions.
Well, it's just item attachment 4.
Right, okay, attachment 4.
Yeah, so that's the existing policy.
Oh, okay.
And then that's
Yes,
where
okay.
staff had
That's good.
redlined the
Yeah.
changes so we can see them.
Yeah.
So it's just, are we
Okay.
comfortable with those changes?
So,
Okay, so would someone, okay, Counselor St. Pierre is moving it, Counselor Beddoes is seconded, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one then is getting into the terms of reference for the Community Economic Development Committee. So that would be
If I
attachment 1.
Yeah,
right?
if I may, the section that council, I get the sense that council would be wanting to amend the diversity and expertise section of the proposed terms of reference.
That would make sense, because right now it says members shall be chosen for their special expertise, experience, dedication, and commitment to the mandates of the committee. So then that's where specifically the language shared, I believe, by our corporate officer could be incorporated here.
That's correct. That's where I would suggest putting any additional language on expertise or preferences to certain types of individuals.
Okay, so what would be the amended wording that we're looking to put there? Someone had shared something that might work. Was that? It was our corporate officer, okay.
Let's see if I can remember my brilliance of 2 minutes ago. So what I would suggest is that the proposed terms of reference be amended to amend the diversity and expertise section of the terms of reference to include wording that one member of the committee preference would be given to one member of the committee to be of Indigenous representation.
I'll make that motion.
So that's moved by Councillor Beddoes, is to adopt the terms of the committee Economic Development Committee to make that amendment. So that's been moved. Is there a seconder? Well, it's not an amending motion because the motion hasn't been moved. He's making the motion to amend the terms. So that's seconded by Councillor Pearson. Okay?
further amendments?
Okay, sure. Yep.
Okay, well, for one thing, the terms of reference state economic development committees. So I know you keep referring to community economics, so that's just a small addition there. I was curious why within the terms of reference, there's no reference to the community economic development strategy and action plan. That would surely be the fundamental document that this committee would need to reference as it moves forward.
Well, it does say it's aligning with municipal OCP and related policies.
Okay, then that would
So
cover
that would cover that. Would it not?
Okay. I guess it would be nice to cite it as a recognition of all the work that went into that document by Sue Welke and then later by Sue Welke back in the day. Those fondly remembered days, which I keep trying to keep from vanishing in the rear view. So there's that one thing. I'd also like to reference our dedication within the strategic plan to the low carbon resilience model and how that potentially could be added into both terms of references to remind committee members that this is a central part of how the district does business.
Well, members of council will also be there too.
Yeah, we can remind them too, but why not put it in writing?
Okay, so then propose we have a motion on the floor now. So I hear you wanting to make an amendment. So now is the time to make that amendment because otherwise your comments would be deemed out of order.
So that the terms of reference be retitled Community Economic Development Committee.
Okay, so that's one,
Minor
community economic development. Yep.
Yeah. And secondly,
you could
that
then
a reference be made within the mandate to the Community Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan and the low carbon resilience model. Co-benefits model.
let's just have staff capture that. And it's been,
wordy.
it's an amendment. So Councillor Bateman is proposing that as an amendment. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor St. Pierre has seconded the amendment. So both of those, well, there's three. So the amendment to the main motion is to rename the committee the Community Economic Development Committee. The second one would be referencing the low carbon resilience co-benefits framework. And the third one is the community economic. Yeah, those are that is the amendment that's been moved and seconded. So now you can motivate on that amendment because it's been seconded.
Oh, I just think the more the merrier within these documents, particularly given these are two fundamental pieces of how the district intends to do business.
Would the seconder like to comment?
I think that including the word community is very important because it actually puts forward that you're not just, if we strictly say economic development, it's a certain field to the committee. I think that when we're considering the social aspect, we're trying to take care of people while promoting business, and that's important. And I think that's something we've talked about before and been in agreement on. I think that following up on previous plans like the community active plan that Councillor Bateman was referencing is also important, just useful for the committee to have access to. And I did see, reference to things like regenerative community-led destination, and I do think that the intent is going in the right direction. But at the same time, I think it's important as we develop our economy that we have an economy that's just going to sustain us into the future and actually achieve as much as possible some of our targets in terms of carbon reduction. That doesn't mean that we can necessarily, it's not a handcuff or anything like that, but certainly it can let everyone know that we're hoping, and that's what we need.
Okay, so on the amendment, everyone's clear what we're amending? Councillor Beddoes. Go ahead.
Your worship. Yeah, I'm okay with amendment number 1. I'm not okay with the other amendments. I think it makes it too cumbersome. Zero carbon reduction, it's an ongoing thing. So we're just throwing some terms out there. I don't think it's necessary. I think we've got a committee and they will deal with whatever is comes up. So I'm not in favor of 2 and 3, just 1. I'll vote against it.
Okay, Councillor, anyone else? On the amendment. So the amendment is to rename it and to reference the two. Yeah, it's not quite reflected on the screen because the main motion included the change to the diversity and expertise section. This amendment is dealing with adding the word community and referencing those 2 other documents. So that is the amendment that we're voting on right now, is the amendment to add those 3 things. Okay? Everyone knows what we're doing. Okay, so I will call the question on the amendment then. All those in favor and opposed? Councillor Beddoes is opposed. It carries. So now the main motion as it's amended, please. So we're just moving along. I know that staff, you're trying to keep up. That's okay. I think we're aware the webcast is catching it too. So we'll keep rolling. All right. Okay, so now on the main amended motion, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So the next part of this report then is to, okay, so the next part is the 4 members of council, or up to 4, to be included on this particular committee. The Community Economic Development Committee. So looking for up to 4 members of council.
Well, I'm going to volunteer myself for community economic development and will not go anywhere near the land use development.
Okay, that's fair. So Councillor Bateman would like to be on this committee. Councillor Pearson?
Yes, on both.
Yeah, well, you could be. Well, it's up to 4, so Councillor St. Pierre. Okay. Councillor Beddoes is not putting his hand up. Okay, so for now, we'll leave it that council recommend that the mayor appoint the following council members to the Community Economic Development Committee. Councillor Jeff Bateman, Councillor Kevin Pearson, Councillor Tony St. Pierre. Okay, who's moving that? Councillor Beddoes is moving it and seconded by Councillor Bateman. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, so now we're into the Land Use and Development Committee. Are there any recommendations for the change? I think the same one should apply with the change to the diversity and expertise. So right off the main motion, it could be that council adopt the terms of reference for the Land Use and Development Committee with the amendment to the diversity and expertise section.
So moved.
Yes, to match that of community economic. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Beddoes.
We're also going to include low carbon resilience within the terms of reference.
We're not on the terms of reference.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're just on, are we on the terms of reference? We are on the terms of reference. Okay. So sorry, that is my mistake. So I'm moving too quickly. So we'll deal with that first piece and now you can look at an amending motion. So on the terms of reference for the Land Use and Committee, we're automatically dealing with the diversity and expertise part. Where is it that you're looking to do the amendment to the terms of reference?
Well,
under the mandate?
Yeah, under the mandate, I'd like to see a reference.
Okay, in the microphone.
Oh, that's not me tonight. Okay. And I see we're missing number C, but you're going to capture that later under item 2. So item B would be include a reference to the low carbon resilience co-benefits model as a lens through which decision making is made.
Okay, so that's an amending motion now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an amended motion to the terms of reference.
Low
That's
carbon resilience.
being moved by Councillor Bateman as an amendment. Is there a seconder to that amendment?
I'll second it for discussion.
Councillor Pearson is seconding. Good. Okay, so on the amendment, go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Well, I just think, again, it is critical that council staff and the committees that we're forming remember that we as a council have and staff included within our strat plan, low carbon resilience as a whole of operation lens, the green lens, this legendary green lens, which we struggled over for 3 years and finally came down to that particular approach. And it's in the strat plan, and I think it should be in these other documents as well.
Okay, well, if it's in the strat plan, then it goes through. So does it need to belong here is the question. Councillor Pearson, go ahead, you're a seconder.
Yeah, I seconded it for discussion and it's, I was hoping for a more wholesome explanation from the mover. More wholesome, yes. Yeah, robust would be good. Yes, okay. I often agree with you. The low carbon resilience, I think, is driven by our strategic plan. Transportation, reducing idling times and all of those things that I would see be fitting it naturally into a land use committee. But I also think that our other pull on land use committee could be going in, not a different direction, but it does, maybe there's a kind of a synergy that doesn't match for me, but I'll wait for a more robust explanation.
Councillor St. Pierre?
Having chaired this committee in the past, I was looking at the language around the terms of reference, and I found it to be fairly robust as it was in terms of things like sustainable, while minimizing environmental impacts, zoning to promote mixed-use zoning, which as far as I'm concerned is very GHG reducing, community livability, business integration, sustainable land use again. Basically, a lot of the language around this is actually very much trying to promote environmental awareness and things that we need in terms of reducing our GHGs already, but it's being very specific. Whereas I think the lens, and I am aware of what it looks like and how it's used, I'm not sure how the committee would be able to use it. So although I agree with the intent of trying to make sure that these documents flow through all of the committees and that it's accepted by everyone, I don't know how easy it would be to actually put into practice within the community work. So I don't know that I necessarily agree, and that's, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I would just try to be a little more wholesomely robust from this end. I'll just say, I think it's just part of the larger framework but you know, I think your points are all made and I'll be happy to let this one go.
Okay, well, it's on the floor, so I'll call the question for the amendment. All those in favor? I'll just,
But we're breaking it into two pieces, right?
well, I'm on the, yes, that's the amendment, because the other part was added within the main motion when it was moved, was the piece, the amendment to the diversity and inclusion section. That's in the main motion. The amendment is to add a reference to the low carbon resilience. So that is now the amending motion. So we're on the amending motion. Do we add that in or not is the question, okay? All those in favor of that? Opposed? Councillor Beddoes opposed, so that's carried. It's in there. Now the main amended motion to the terms of reference. Okay?
So moved.
All those in favor of it? And that's carried unanimously. Okay. So that terms of reference is complete. So now it would be council appointments up to 4. And so in that council recommend the mayor appoint the following council members to the Land Use and Economic Development Committee. So Councillor Pearson has expressed interest.
I express interest.
Councillor Beddoes and Councillor St. Pierre. Okay. Councillor Bateman has already indicated he wants to stay far away from it.
No, I don't want to stay far away, but there's limited time and energy, but all councillors are welcome to attend meetings and
yes,
sit
these
in the
are,
audience.
they are public meetings.
Absolutely.
Staff have already determined a schedule of when they would be 1 o'clock. This one is on the Monday, the other one's on the Tuesday. So they're not overlapping so that members of council can attend both or sit aside or however.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I know, or I seem to know that, I mean, I could be wrong, that this is something that Councillor McMath possibly is interested in. So, I would like to give her the option as number 4, if we wanted to ask her.
Well, for either, because the first one, we've only appointed 3, this one is 3, so then should that work, then she could make that request at the later date.
Yeah. I just.
Okay.
Yeah, and my point was just to get it in the minutes so that we've asked her. Thank you.
Nice.
Okay, so I'll call the question. So this one would be that council recommend the mayor appoint the following council members to the Land Use and Development Committee, Councillor Pearson, Beddoes, and St. Pierre. All right, that's moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And yes, there is space for Councillor McMath on either of these, should she be interested in attending. Okay, the next part here is that council directs staff to advertise the request for interest individuals to make applications to be considered for appointments to the Community Economic Development Committee and the Land Use and Development Committee. So that's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Pearson. I just have a question. When would we actually look to advertise for these and how will we accept the applications? Because they may not be best to go in the mail.
Yes, so through the mayor to council, considering the holiday season, we are going to have an extended period. Our intention is to get the notice of advertisements out before Christmas, but to have an extended period closing at the end of January and brought back in February. And we would have multiple methods of submission, emails, drop off in person, or mail. Essentially, if you get it to us, it will count.
So that makes sense. Okay, so we'll early advertise before, it can be picked up again after Christmas as well. So yeah, that makes sense, just to have a long period of time there. Okay, so I will then ask for a mover then, the council direct staff to advertise for the interested. Did we do move in second? We've done that. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that's carried unanimously. Okay. The next one is our bylaw section of number 9. And this is for the Board of Variance bylaw update that we've been waiting for. So over to staff, please.
Thank you again through the mayor to council. This bylaw is being presented, which is intended to supersede our previous Board of Variance bylaw 311. Staff is presenting a revised Board of Variance bylaw to ensure that the district complies with the current legislation and also aligns with the updated development procedures bylaw 900/2024. Myself and the director of planning is here to answer questions.
Okay, so same sort of thing that we're amending the bylaw for this, and then once we adopt it, then we would advertise for members. Is that the procedure?
Yes, and just to be clear, we are repealing and replacing a bylaw. We're just starting fresh. There was a number of amendments, so it was easier just to start with a clean slate here. So the recommendation before council today is to give 3 readings to the Board of Variance bylaw. And if council proceeds to do so, it would be brought forward to the next meeting for adoption. And then after that, we would proceed with posting advertisements for application to this. So because it is a bylaw, we did need the extra meeting because there needs to be one clear day between 3 readings and adoption of this bylaw.
Okay, so in this case, this one would be potentially if council advances this, it'll be adopted at the first regular scheduled meeting in the new year and then be posted accordingly. Okay, so we would sort of be fielding applications around the same time. Questions? Any other questions? Councillor St. Pierre, then Pearson.
I had a question around what the work that the board does. My understanding is it's strictly limited to minor variances, correct? Or sorry, let me just continue. I think it is restricted to minor variances. My understanding is that our director of planning at this point can actually take care of minor variances, but if they're refused for whatever reason, the public still has the option of coming to council. How does that work in with the Board of Variance? Just curious how that all.
Through your worship. So the difference between minor variances and the Board of Variance is that the Board of Variance is based on hardship. And so it's always up to the applicant to determine which one they want to apply to, whether it's a minor variance or a Board of Variance. But staff would definitely be guiding them to the right application process. But it is a bit of a gray area between the two. I am hoping that the fact that we can approve, or I can approve minor variances, will mean that people lean in that direction, because it'll be a quicker and easier process. But it's ultimately up to the applicant which direction they want to go. But in terms of the committee, the board that's making a decision, they're required to make a decision based on hardship.
Councillor Pearson.
Yes, through the chair. And I think it's to the director of planning. So mention some amended language. Is that what? Like this, that the Board of Variances, that we've got something different than the charter, or is there something different that we're applying? We've created our own in Sooke. Is that what I'm hearing?
My understanding is the previous Board of Variance bylaw, because it was about a decade old, it was just citing legislation that has been updated, whether it be numbers or, yeah, it just did not reference the appropriate charter or the local government act sections. As well, the development procedures bylaw 900 had procedures around the Board of Variance. So how we framed this Board of Variance bylaw is to connect those bylaws together, so we weren't repeating the procedures or having procedures in two different bylaws that were contrary to each other. So essentially, all we did is we refreshed our old bylaw to have current legislation references, as well as connecting to the development procedures bylaw 900, so that we had consistency between the two bylaws.
Right, okay, so then you've removed any potential collisions. We've reviewed that now? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council give first, second, and third reading to the Board of Variance bylaw number 919/2024. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any comments? Any comments? Councillor Bateman?
I was just curious, how many people are appointed to, I've missed this somewhere. It's obviously in here. How many people are you seeking?
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, the Local Government Act mandates how many people are required to sit on the Board of Variance. And I'm quickly searching through my staff report, which I believe says 5 based on the population of the municipality.
Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you, staff, for your work on the committees and everyone for your discussion. Yes, we'll call for a short recess here. Well, our usual 10 minutes is 7:50, so we'll reconvene at 8 o'clock, please. Okay, everyone, I'd like to call your attention back to the meeting, please. If everyone could please take your seats. Thank you. We are now on to item number 10 in the correspondence requiring action. The first one being 10.1. Councillor Bateman, you have the floor.
Okay, so, I'd like to move this correspondence for information and then take my 5 minutes to motivate. That's one approach, or I can just barrel into my prepared comments.
Well, procedurally, you'll need to make a motion to speak on anything. So
Okay, but
you'll
I'd like
need to make a motion.
I'd like to move this correspondence for information.
Okay, a second to be received and filed. Okay, seconded by Councillor Beddoes, and now you have your microphone. Go ahead.
Okay, so I started pulling this correspondence regarding Ellis Stream back in the early new year. And I did so not because I think I got the wrong notes here. Me and my notes. Okay, I'll have to wing it. Dear me. Okay, so I was curious. Like many in town, I was curious when I heard that Ellis Stream had vanished, the northern reaches of Ellis Stream. So I continued to pull these letters because it's in the category of lessons learned and not to be repeated. And this is a very important one. I've learned a great deal over these last 9 months through ground-proofing site visits with the Watershed Group and with Verity's Chad Bryden and Malcolm McNaughton. The video clips, the written materials shared by the Watershed Group, and particular thanks in this mission to understand to Mr. Marshall and his paradoxically high level, yet deeply, remarkably in-depth staff report a month ago. I have found my notes now, so I'm off and running. I'm hoping we can reach some closure on this, and I have no intention of making further motions at this time. So here's what I've learned. Yes, mistakes were made, as Mr. Marshall forthrightly stated in his report. Quote, "It is possible that enforcement of the permit could have been impacted by a lack of staff resources, high staff turnover, property ownership changing 3 times until the current ownership was obtained in 2022, and uncertainty as to the information that the council received at the time to inform their decisions about permit adherence." Beyond this, the mistakes, there was a lot of good full due and regulatory process was followed. The original zoning and development permit, when the owner began blasting land clearance without a development permit, a stop work order was initiated. The zoning amendment went through in 2018, the park covenant amendment in 2021. So there was a lot of good process, including as it was noted by the Watershed Group, something went horribly wrong in January 2018. And that was, according to the aerial record, as highlighted in Mrs. Phillips' letter, which is also part of tonight's package, the seeming infill of the northern reaches of Ellis Stream. Now, contrary to that conclusion, we have the 2018 Environmental Assessment Report, and we also have the province's findings earlier this year, which state on inspection of the area, no visible stream boundary or surface hydrological connection could be confirmed leading into the fill zone. And of course, as Mrs. Phillips notes, it's possible the province did not have a full record of earlier documentation. What else did I learn? That the district's practices and regulatory bylaws are continually being improved. I'm quoting now from Ms. Gray, who is away tonight. What she's noted is that since the new owners, developers have taken over the project, they have continuously been proactive in working with the district to deal with any historical issues that they inherited when they purchased the property, as well as developing a path forward. She's also notes staff has been satisfied with the ongoing working relationship with Verity, and at this time, staff are confident we have the checks and balances in place to prevent something like this from happening again. Over the last 6 years, she notes, council and staff have undertaken numerous bylaw changes, process improvements, technology enhancements to the Tempest software, staffing additions, and information sharing to try and be as proactive as possible to prevent future occurrences. And Staff rather critically here are following district policies, procedures, and the guidance provided by the province, as they legally must do on moving forward. The watershed group states the district seems overburdened with responsibilities created by a large development in an environmentally sensitive area. Yes, staff has finite resources, as Mr. Marshall told us last month. And the key point here is monthly reports from a QEP will fill the gap in our ability to monitor sites of this kind. You know, the developer in 2012 promised to deliver monthly reports via QEP, and these were not forthcoming. However, they have now begun thanks to Ms. Budgeon and starting in October, I believe. Finally, the present tense statement here in the watershed group's submission, we have federal and provincial environmental protection laws, municipal development bylaws, and yet the developers appear to be free to do what suits them, not what is required. Now, that is categorically false. The email sent to the property owner on August 23rd, 2024 listed outstanding issues to be resolved by October 1st. Verity complied with these. And so we are doing the very best we can here in 2024 with a whole, as I'll just quote Ms. Gray a second time, numerous bylaw changes, process improvements, technology enhancement, staffing additions, and information sharing to try and be as proactive as possible. And the letter from the Watershed Group concludes, our group hopes for a continued and constructive dialogue with the District of Sooke. And yes, we are absolutely open to dialogue and learning, as I trust we have demonstrated very fully over the last year. So that's about all I have to say.
Okay. Seconder was Councillor Beddoes, I believe.
Yeah, this, like I say, when we had that high level discussion by our staff, I was just appalled at what had went on. But again, as Councillor Bateman says, lessons learned. And that's the important thing here, that we don't repeat that again. And my understanding was staff and the developer that now owns it, they're very diligent. They're engaged with staff at every step of the way. And staff is keeping an eye on the situation. And everybody's looking for the common good. It's unfortunate it happened. It's hard to back it up, but we have to learn from it. And I think we have. And that's not just as a council, that is staff, that is the community. Keep a watchful eye and let us know when something goes sideways, because a lot of times we don't know about it till it's too late. So I give hats off to the new owners. They seem to be very diligent and wanting to make this right. So I was happy to second that motion.
Any other comments? Councillor Pearson?
Yes. And I think for me, you know, we do have new owners. The new owner has been here at countless meetings for countless amounts of hours waiting for his spot on the agenda to see what our discussion is. And it's got to be difficult when you look at an agenda and yet we're on there again. And it's based on, you know, other people's complaining, or I don't know what to say, the complaining. They're giving us information that sometimes doesn't turn to be as true. And there is historical things that we all admit that, you know, maybe didn't go wrong. But at some point, I use Sun River as an example. When you walk through Sun River at the 100 lot or 100 house garage sale, infill, trees have grown. It's a mature subdivision. And I fully expect that that's what will happen on the hillside. You know, when we embarked on starting that hillside on, you know, on the easternmost portion of the hill, it was always intended to continue right along and join up with AirNet, all that road network, all of those things, roads in, roads out, affordable housing, amazing views, not taking up farmland, not doing all that. That's where our development should have taken place. And thank you for the developers for coming in here night after night after night. And sometimes it must be unnerving to come and look at our agenda and, you know, what's going to happen out of this. But it's time to move on. We've done the best we can. This council, you know, it's intrinsic or incumbent upon us to do what's right. And that's, you know, get the best deal we can at all times, and sometimes those get missed. But you know what? We're at a point where we've done our due diligence. The province has told us that things are okay. Our staff has told us that things are okay. The developer comes and says, I'll do the best I can. I think we can't ask for more than that. So anyway, statement, no question.
Thank you, Counselor, and that's fine because we're on a motion. So thank you. Counselor St. Pierre.
I guess I'll make a brief statement too, and that's that I understand that from what we can tell, the developers, the original owners, basically flouted the process, ignored what they were supposed to do, created a huge mess, made a lot of people really angry for very good reason. But at this point in time, we have people that are trying to fix it, and we are trying to fix it. We're all trying to be part of a solution. We're trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think it's good that we actually get into some healing now, and that's what we need to do is heal that land, make sure it's actually not bare, not destroyed. And that's what's happening with Corvidae, and that's what's happening with these developers. And I look forward to seeing a mature development where maybe we do have some older trees eventually, even though the development process doesn't often allow us to keep those trees while it's happening.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I mean, arguably, all of Sooke at one point has gone through a shakeup like this over the years, some more recent, some, centuries old. Touching on what Councillor Pearson says, the area where I live, arguably was devastated just the same. However, now that the humans are there, people are taking care of their property. We have an excellent park staff that are doing great work in the trail network and the lands that are now owned by the district. And the trees are growing and thriving, and all the creatures that depend on those are back in again. And they're obviously in some cases more noticeable because of technology improvements to door cams and the like, where you actually see what's going on more so now than maybe you did in years past when security features weren't as current as they are today. So I think we got it. We know that we can always do better, and that's what we're all here to do. And it takes all parties willing to do that. But we are seeing that as expressed by others. So on that, we'll leave it and thank everyone for their time. I appreciate the public for their concerns that they brought forward, but also the applicants and the developers willing to participate and answer and address those as we go along, and to be as open and available as you have been, either to meet with individuals on site, our staff, members of council and the like, and being present to speak further and for sitting through these meetings. Which of course you're always welcome to attend. And we look forward to seeing you just because of, it's local government. Why would you not want to be here on a Monday night? So on that note, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to 10.2, Councillor Beddoes, this is your item.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. This letter goes back to.
So just procedurally be the same thing, would be to move to receive unless you have a different motion, and then you can speak to it.
I was looking for some clarity. So, okay, I'll make a motion that we receive, and I would like to motivate and get some direction.
Yep, that's fine. Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Go ahead, please, Councillor Beddoes.
Okay, this has come up, and it's to deal with the tax exemptions. We give a lot of properties, and there's a whole list of them, very, very long. And as you're probably aware, I was concerned with one, but we voted on that, and I'm okay with it. That's the majority rules. But when talking with our CAO and staff, the whole tax exemption group is going to be looked at next year, my understanding. And so I have some questions about that. And the reason I'm asking for it is I have people in the public asking me how it works. So am I free to ask those questions?
Yes, you can. And then it just may be that if we don't have an answer tonight,
that's fine.
We'll carry on. Yeah.
But first of all, who does the review? And briefly, how's it done? And are we anticipating going to a sliding scale where there may be some property that has got a full tax exemption may only qualify for a 50% tax exemption? I heard that was a possibility. So I would like to have a little bit of assurance that how we're going to go about it next year. And are we going to ask the public to weigh in on this, or is it done by staff completely?
No, it comes, I'll start and then I'll turn it
Okay,
over to
I
staff.
appreciate that.
So there is a report that does come to council. So, and then at one point in my memory, it used to be on an annual basis. And then I think to sort of simplify it or to give certainty, that's where council said, okay, we'll give these ones a tax break for 10 years or 5 years, and then they would be renewed. It does come to an open meeting.
Okay.
And then there's a time that a group would need to put in the ask by, and staff will have that, like you need to apply for it to, and there's conditions, so I couldn't just ask for a tax exemption. It doesn't fit. There has to be certain
Criteria,
reasons,
okay.
criteria. So then staff will go through that, and then it comes to council for endorsement, and there's a time frame of when that has to happen. And so I think of one where currently Route 14 is located in that block there. It was once the Salvation Army that had a thrift shop there.
Correct.
So I remember, and this one's just in my mind because I remember that they had applied for the permissive tax exemption because they're a charity. And then it was noted that should they no longer be there, then that would be removed so that the next entity can't carry on unless they requalify. So then after that group departed, then it's gone back to commercial paying taxes. And then there's the recreational pieces and so forth. And so that's how that, just generally, and then maybe staff can have a bit more.
One of the reasons I'm asking is that we have, to me, a very, very good staff, but a lot of them don't have longevity in this community. And I was wondering if there was some, or is it that our job to have a look at that? There's maybe a citizens group to look at it, or maybe that's too cumbersome. I don't know. But I mean, think that there's a lot of historical reasons why some of these are tax exempted. I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, or they just look at a hard criteria that is written down that they hit all these buttons, A, B, C, and D. So, I mean, I have a lot of faith in staff, but again, you know, some of these institutions that have been getting these tax holidays have been around a long time, and I don't want to sell them short because I feel in this whole group that I looked at, there is an opportunity for us to take the burden off of those people that are paying the bills. And we're going to hit them with the tax increase, and it would be nice if we've got people to pay their share. That's all. So I'm just trying to gather some information now as to how we're going to go about this. You were very helpful in explaining how it comes forward, but I'm still not sure how the criteria works, but maybe I can sit down with staff and somebody could explain it to me.
I see that our acting CAO has, and our finance director is in that role, so.
They got a pre-warning I was doing
Yeah.
this, so.
Please go ahead.
Through the mayor to council, thank you for the correspondence. We are working on a report to provide a list of possible policy amendment options that council could consider regarding the permissive tax exemption. And will in the report will assist council in determining the acceptable scope of the exemptions. I understand that council is not very clear about the criteria. It's because the old policy is not clear on the criteria. And we're going to rework on that.
That's good. Then I'm glad I raised the question. That's
yes.
Great.
I understand that the community has a lot of questions regarding the supportive housing organization, whether they should receive the tax exemption. So in the forthcoming reports, we will give council 3 options. Like we could give no tax exemption, partial exemption, or full exemption. And it's up to council to vote, to discuss and vote and decide which path you want to go down and the rationale behind it as well. Okay. And a lot of some some municipalities actually don't give permissive tax exemption to any long-term rental housing kind of facilities. They only gave short-term emergency shelter in transit kind of a supportive housing service. So, but this kind of details we're going to bring up in the first quarter next year. It's up to council to vote and to decide. So.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that because I was wondering if it was going to languish in some corner somewhere. And it sounds to me like you're working on the things that I feel need to be looked at. And I look forward to your report in January, February, sometime in the early part of the year, because I think there is going to be a very big strain on the taxpayers in Sooke, possibly with boring referendums and things. And if we were able to, I don't want to say, beat money out of some people, but I think if we could get some more people to pay their taxes, it's going to alleviate some of these people that we represent that are having a hard time making their mortgage payment. So I'm happy with that. And that's all I need. Thank you.
Yeah, more to come. And that's where some have just been locked away for a long period of time and then they'll come forward for renewal. Counselor, did I see your hand? Counselor Pearson, go ahead.
Yes. Yes. And through the chair, in the past, and I think the mayor will recall, we actually went line by line on all of the permissive tax exemptions, and they talked about how it affected their budget. It was a big, long exercise, but it was very interesting to find out. Some are places of worship, so they were just sort of naturally grandfathered in, but there was other people where it had budget implications, and then we got to fully understand what those budgets. So it's a little bit of an onerous exercise, but it really helped me understand case by case, and I really appreciated that at the time.
Counselor Bateman, then St. Pierre.
Yeah, it's just a comment that this is happening in other communities at the moment, where, municipal fiscal reform, right? We need revenue. And so there are two very strong examples, Gibson's and Terrace. So Terrace was June 17th, 2024. Gibson's was November 3rd, 2023. So if you wanted to search out that information, and what Terrace is doing, for example, they're looking at, you can get 25, 50, 75% permissive tax exemption. And it's also, they're going to phase it in over 4 years so that that can sugarcoat the suffering a little bit. Oh, and the other key point is, part of the analysis is how much does the organization provide to the community at large? So that's an interesting factor as well.
Councillor St. Pierre.
Through your worship to staff, I'm just curious about if a group basically has been grandfathered, has been getting an exemption for a long time. They come to us, as Councillor Pearson was saying, and looks like they have financial hardship. That sounds a lot like the Board of Variance, except they don't normally deal with money issues. But it does sound a lot like the Board of Variance, the kind of thing that they could deal with. Is there any sort of a precedent for a body that would deal with exemptions?
It would be council.
I realize that.
Yeah, no, you cannot pass it on. Well, I guess you could form a short finance committee of sorts to deal with it, but then the decision must be made by council. So that's our work to do. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that's carried unanimously. Third piece of piece of correspondence, 10.3, Little River Crossing. Over to you, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, so I'll move that. What am I moving here? Be received for information that the correspondence from Mr. Peter Sooke be received for information.
Okay, moved and seconded by Councillor Pearson, and then to speak to it, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I don't know Mr. Stoke's, whether I'm even pronouncing Stoko is his background, but I suspect he's a professional in this field, and it was such a substantial letter. It just demanded to be pulled. He's brought forward three suggestions regarding the tender. In terms of a grid system to retain gravel over time, it's a preventative measure. That's in item 1.26 and 1.27 of the form of tender document. And that's optional. This next one is also optional. Safety issues, item 1.41, a rail fence on steep sections. And he's recommending that either put up fencing at certain spots or add the grid system with the gravel grid system. And then he also cites amenity needs and the need for benches along this very steep and challenging route. So I bring this forward just in case staff hasn't seen it. You likely already have. I'm always a little confused as to how much of this correspondence gets to your respective desks, but I did want to bring it forward tonight.
Any thoughts from staff just on the options, given that this is now in the works?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to Councillor Bateman and Council. So these optional items, they're strategically put in the tender as optional items. Ultimately, all the tenders that are in compliance will be evaluated with those optional items included. The award recommendation will include inclusion of those optional items. What putting optional items in a tender does is it gives the district the ability through the course of the project to remove those items and zero out those quantities. Meaning if there are substantial cost overruns, if we anticipate any, or if there's any unforeseen circumstances, it's going to drive the project over budget. What this allows us to do with those items is cancel them out of the project to come back and do them at a later date so we don't overrun a project budget. If they're not put in as optional items, if we change any amount of the quantities within a tender within 10 to 20%, the contractor has the legal right to come back and give us a new price on whatever they want for that entire item, which they will usually give substantial prices. So this just gives a little bit of flexibility within the working through the contract when we're constructing the project, but ultimately the tenders will all be evaluated with the optional items included. The award recommendation will include the optional items in there. It just gives us more flexibility in working through the project if there's unforeseen circumstances to remove some items and come back at a later date to put those items in.
All right, so more on this in the new year once we receive the full report. Okay, call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Next up, and we're in our new business section. So under 11.1, there's the South Island Prosperity Partnership Municipal Partners Committee appointments. This just came in late as I had asked the organizers just for some more information about this for everyone to consider, and then the appointment here. Okay, so is anyone interested in being the appointments on the South Island Prosperity Partnership? Some of you may have been to Local Government Awareness Week, Local Economy Rising. It's the new lead is Aaron Stone, who you might know was the former mayor of Ladysmith. It's a very dynamic group with great energy, bringing together not only local government, but business expertise, small business, Indigenous participation through various, I see members from Sooke regularly, and other nations together. So it's kind of one of the only entities that actually brings a collaboration of groups together for the South Island. Okay, so I think we just need one person though. So the meeting meets, let me see here, meeting frequency could be once a month. I don't see that exactly in here.
Sorry.
Alternates are welcome to attend. Let's see here. The appointment frequency, permanent ongoing committee within this. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly how frequently it meets. Yeah, why don't you give it a go and see? So that council appoint Councillor Tony St. Pierre as the District of Sooke's representative to the South Island Prosperity Partnership Municipal Partners Committee for a 1-year term commencing January 1st, 25 and expiring December 31st, 2025.
Is this the one Councillor launched? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that is moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor Bateman. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. So,
Okay, I'll volunteer, you know.
okay, so, and then also then that council appoint Councillor Kevin Pearson as an alternate to SIP. So moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you both. And then I suggest you just reach out and then see, and then take it from there. Okay. Items removed from so the other piece here was following our delegation, there was an ask that was brought forward to our attention with 5 items, and this was now emailed to us. And some of these here, just to reiterate, would be to help SD 62 with the Pride Parade. AVIC and UBCM in regarding the motions there. Alterations to the sign, following up with staff on the changes. And then that may trigger the sign from being grandfathered. The committees in which we've talked about, and then the installation of a rainbow crosswalk. That is just on that one, I'm going to go in reverse order. As my understanding is that we have a live motion and an ask and an intention to actually do a rainbow crosswalk. And I thought it would be one of the ones in the town center, and that there was sort of back and forth with highways. But what is the issue there? Why won't they do it? Does anyone know? Because that has been something we've been debating. Councillor Parkinson came up with 3 different designs and locations on where they would be. And then in part, it was just waiting for some construction to complete, which is done. So anyone able to answer that right now?
Yeah, through your worship to council, I can revisit the conversation with the ministry. I don't know if they would 100% entertain it. They may, but I can ask them the question. I would assume that if they did entertain it, it would be at the district's cost and our responsibility for maintenance and keeping it up to par. But I will talk to the ministry and report back to council.
Yeah, I think it's just understanding, okay, so we agreed on this, and is it a no, is it a maybe, or what is the reason? And at least we get clarity, and then we can decide then, is that the best location, or is there another place that might be easier for us to do if it's just strictly on a district road entirely? Councillor St. Pierre?
Yes, so following up on that, it feels like putting a rainbow crosswalk near schools that were on district property where the roads are, it's under our control, and it makes a lot of sense in terms of the kind of messaging that would be appreciated. I was also curious to ask a question through your worship to staff. I have run across the idea of actually doing a raised crosswalk, simply because it automatically causes traffic to slow down for it. It's basically a speed bump combined with a crosswalk. And I was wondering if our staff could comment on whether or not that's something that we could do in Sooke, because it sounds really intuitively useful.
That's kind of out of scope. We're talking about the sign in a rainbow crosswalk.
Yeah, I'm
So
talking about this, the rainbow crosswalk too, but I'm just curious about this other thing that came up. That's all.
a raised crosswalk
Yeah,
now.
with a rainbow in it.
What is triggering that? There's no correspondence about it or anything. Like, I'm just talking about the delegation specifically. So I'd like to remain on the delegation request. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, there was I didn't quite get it, and I'm hoping somebody from staff or yourself. We talked about this grandfather clause and how Silver Streak is exempt from our sign bylaw, and I'm not that familiar with the sign bylaw. But our presenter said that we could change that. and remove that grandfathering piece. That's the impression I got. Could I get staff to comment on how we do that and what power does it give us when they're not exempted? I mean, what things can, you know, they can put on a sign? It's a business sign. So I'm just wondering how that would work into it. Like I hate muzzling anybody, but some of the stuff is just stupid that I see. But this business about shooting and threatening is very, very serious. So if staff, can you comment on that? How do we get them out of the exemption, and what power does it give us?
Thank you. Through the mayor to council. So staff revisited a past legal opinion to get a revised understanding of this, and we've looked into our regulatory authority on the matter. And based on the history of the changeable copy sign, it is protected from the application of our current district sign bylaw. Because it was pre-existing non-conforming, and it may be used on the property for so long as it has not been discontinued for a period of 6 months or longer, and so long as it has not been damaged or destroyed to the extent of 75% or more of its value. So it's not a decision that the district made or can make at this point. It's about existing prior to the enactment of a bylaw. And so if there is a deterioration of the sign or rebuild of the sign, then our new bylaw would trigger and be into effect.
So the sign existed before our bylaw, and that's why it's grandfathered.
Existing non-conforming.
I guess what's confusing there is Ms. Loggins, she alluded to there was a way to change it, and I didn't catch that. And I was wondering whether you did. And from what you're telling me is there's nothing we can do about it. They have that right because they're grandfathered, no matter what they put up there. And then it becomes a human rights issue, and we know where that goes. It takes years and years. So you're basically telling me there's really nothing we can do in that respect? I think that's what you're saying.
That's correct. As a regulatory body, in regards to the application of our sign bylaw, it doesn't apply in this case. And of course, as you referred to, the jurisdiction and related to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is federal jurisdiction, and the BC Human Rights Tribunal is the regulatory authority on hate speech in our jurisdiction.
Okay, so I guess to me that leaves, you know, we advocate at UBCM or ABICC that they better fund that so these complaints are handled in a timely manner. And then the other one, of course, you know, we look at these other things, but that was the one that was interested me, that it was alluded that we could make some change and have some sort of say in what's put up there, but apparently not. So that's it. Thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre.
Just want to follow up on a little bit of that through your worship to staff. I think I did ask this question when this file came up previously, but this is not something where we can create a bylaw to say that ugly, hateful language is not allowed on our signs.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, that would be beyond our jurisdiction. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms regulates hate speech and freedom of expression, and that is beyond the scope and jurisdiction of a municipality.
All right. If I can follow up on that question, and what would be the consequence if we created such a bylaw anyway?
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, that is an excellent question. In cases where you have a super jurisdiction, beyond jurisdiction bylaws from a local government, essentially what would happen is they could and will be challenged in court and essentially stricken down by a judge who essentially determines that it is beyond the jurisdiction of your power.
If I could follow up. And what would such a court proceeding likely cost the applicant or the defendant? Just curious.
That's beyond the scope of my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, There's a lot in this email, and I did pull two pieces of correspondence which relates to the most recent not the most recent sign, which in fact advertised the Christmas parade, which was actually a wonderful thing to see. The previous one will come up on January 13th, and perhaps at that time we could add Ms. Loggins's request into the agenda, and staff will have an opportunity to present some kind of short report on the legal opinion.
Okay, so we would need to have staff to, we need to action something here. So I keep looking at the sign bylaw, but it doesn't apply at all. So looking at it and reading it and getting frustrated is just, yeah, okay, that's disappointing. So just procedurally here, so Ms. Logans did follow up with her ask in an email. So I'm just looking to then, for staff to respond, we need to direct them to do something. So that's the motion that I'm looking for. Okay, go Councillor St. Pierre.
I'd like to request a staff report on the different options presented in this correspondence at a future meeting.
Okay, so I will forward that to our corporate officer. So that's a motion made and a seconded is by Councillor, well, I'll just second it since I'm talking. And I will forward this to our corporate officer so that they have it and speak to it. Go ahead.
I don't think we can figure out tonight, which of these are viable, which one we want to move forward. I think we need a staff report to determine what sort of resources are needed and what the path forward might look like on these different options and whether they're actually viable or not.
Okay, and then I seconded it, so I forwarded it on, and yeah, I agree here of exhausting as many options as possible. This staff report could then give that update that I asked Mr. Carter about the Rainbow Crosswalk. If it's a no-fly with the ministry, I think the other location we looked at was on EMC Edward Milne Road, which I think is still under highways jurisdiction. So then if that doesn't work for them, then where else could we put it? So that can come forward then. The other ones were on the resolutions. And then love to see some work together on the Pride Parade. It's just disappointing that it had to be moved at the last minute out of our park onto district-owned or actually school district-owned property only because there were other members of the community that wanted to attend it and then could not. So that is very limiting on its own. And then in case of and then it talks about another community one, and then the sign is just, I appreciate it. It shows more about the character behind the sign than the misguided nonsense that shows up on the sign. But given that we are looking to progress and enhance tourism, it's a negative for people to drive by and see such garbage noted there. The signs are there to promote a business. Like that's kind of why you have one. So it's unfortunate because other businesses have now shared the negative impact on their businesses, and it's because of the sign. And it's difficult for people who are being targeted to speak out because in this day and age, you unfortunately receive more of the same. And it saddens me terribly that we have really good people that are fearful in our community when we are part of the Charter of Compassion. And these ugly voices are seemingly getting all the airtime. And even me speaking about it, I feel like I've given it more than it deserves. And in some part, that's why I've said nothing, because it's just putting air on a fire that doesn't deserve the attention. So I'm going to stop talking about it. Councillor Pearson, I believe.
Thank you. And I'll support the motion, but I think there's really in Ms. Logan's note that she sent to us during the meeting, I think there are some easy things that we can do, like, the AVIC and UBCM are coming up.
Yeah.
We can submit motions. We can, I mean, that doesn't take a lot of work on our part to get a motion prepared. And I think we should have open dialogue with some of our counterparts in other communities, because I'm certainly sure we're not alone. So I'd like to see, and I'll support this motion, I think a report back to see what are easily actionable items, as well as I would be very interested in seeing the legal opinion of, past and present of, what is it, where are those limitations? Our corporate officer, I rely on, her expertise, but, on a legal opinion might give us some places where we can nudge the line, as so to say. Because, installing a rainbow crosswalk, I mean, we control all of our own roads, and we have lots of secondary roads and schools and things like that where they would be. So I think there's some easy actionable items in this list, so some more complicated than.
Okay, Councillor Bateman.
So one thing I'd like to see in this report that comes back to us is I have something here called "What is hate speech?" And that, I believe it came from the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms website. And it's really, important to note what the law defines as hate speech. And versus provocation and dancing along that edge without crossing it. So that is the interesting thing to me. Anyway, to all of us, I hope. So what is hate speech? So that we can have that benchmark.
Okay, so staff are clear. We've sent an email and looking for a follow-up report. Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a request through your worship to staff. I'd love to get Ms. Scott's comments on how the business community is affected by this sort of activity. Just that lens, the business lens, that's all.
Yeah, if they have it. If not, we do have 2 letters that we've already received. So it's somewhere in the correspondence from both Wild Mountain and from the other marine manufacturer. I don't remember the name now of the business.
Yeah,
but
that
they
was
wrote
during
it.
the Bud Light episode.
Yeah, and they were also on the news just indicating the damage that they've endured and the negative reviews that they can't remove now of a problem, not of their, it's just where because of their neighbor. Sooke Marine, that's who the other one is. Okay. All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Item 13 is council verbal, no items removed from consent because those will come to the next one. So item 13, council verbal reports. Councillor Beddoes, please.
Yeah, the first one I'll report on is the parade. Staff had a lot to do with it as well. It went very well. It's a new location. Like I said earlier, the library is just delighted. It's a better spot for us. I felt it was safer. It's still a concern with kids running out on the street. So we're hopefully get some more volunteers or running our alliance pretty ragged putting these things on. So hopefully we can get somebody else to help usher the kids back. The other thing is, in the mayor's absence, I did a radio interview with the CBC Victoria and CKNW about us turning down adopting Bill 44. As you're well aware, CFAX played our council meeting and excerpts from myself and the mayor mainly. I had personally quite a community impact on that. People have come up to me and actually, I haven't heard anything negative about what I said, but congratulating me for standing up for Sooke. It's more complicated than that because I know even the councillors that voted for it, it was more of a fait accompli as opposed to what the legislation was. So anyways, I did CFAX and this morning I did CKNW and no, I did CBC Victoria. So I did that as deputy mayor. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, since last meeting, I attended the Juan de Fuca Water Commission on December the 3rd. Municipalities, or the Juan de Fuca Water Commission passed unanimously the upgrading of tickets being issued in form of financial fines for people who hook up to the water system illegally. So it it's really about setting the tone. It generally happens at construction sites when somebody gets in there and, you know, a creative plumber comes along and says, well, I can get your water hooked up, and it goes out without a meter. There was a lot of discussion around that. The fourth water filling station is planned for 2026 in Metchosin, as a lot of people are trucking water, and it was just a little bit late for the budget inclusion this year to be implemented in 2025. Metchosin's coming to the table, or they should be voting on it tonight, I think, actually, whether they will assist fund it at 50%. And that will get trucks off the road. It'll get, you know, they'll be able to deliver more water in a timely fashion. As we know, a lot of wells are drying up. And that's sort of the big issues, I think, from the Wanafuka Water Commission. Water Watch, we were at I'm going to say 77.2% on, 77.2% on December 1st, which was a little bit behind the meeting date, which is right on schedule. November is our wettest month of the year. But we did fairly well, got fairly significant rainfalls throughout our November this year, and we're on track to be sort of on track, I guess is the way it says. I also attended the parade the other night. Well done to everybody. I want to, you know, I always thank my grandchildren for delivering candies. I got a great price on the additional candies because the District of Sooke swag bag was a little lighter than what my 4 grandchildren can hand out. But the good news is at the bulk barn, they remembered me from last year. Oh, you're the guy that bought all the Jolly Ranchers. And I cleaned out the candy cane bin as well. So anyways, but it was a great night, and positive comments from around the community about just the participation. A little challenging, I think, for people to go somewhere different, but turned out to be great.
That's what we want. Thank you, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, lots of kids. It was fun. You and Trudy, your grandchildren, you can harness them. There would be a source of alternative energy. The green lens. Also, Al or Godfrey from the Lions told me that we had 56 floats or unique vehicles in the float parade. That compares to 80 in the city of Victoria. So, Sooke, what about that? Okay, on Friday night, I wandered around town. It was another shop local initiative, Noel Night Sooke, and all the shops were open till 8 o'clock. That was great fun. There's a new bookstore. I love these independent bookstores. It's called Terrier Books. It's on the ground floor of Artisan's Garden, and it's really something special. You know, very precious little jewel. Opening in our town. So good luck to them. I emceed the Change the Narrative event about harm reduction at EMCS a couple of weeks ago. And this was the intent of it, and the delivery of it in a very moving and meaningful night was to deliver Sooke-specific information on the unregulated toxic drug crisis, homelessness, treatment, prevention, enforcement. We had Sherry Thompson from the shelter, Island Health's Dr. Murray Fife, Sooke RCMP's Greg Wilcox, and a bunch of others. It was we drew about 75 people, which was okay, a little disappointing, but a video was shot. And if you skip the parts where I'm mumbling and bumbling, it's really very powerful presentation. Yeah, right. Okay, there was also with the Victoria Family Court, we toured the Youth Empowerment Society in downtown Victoria, and that's an organization we've at the committee have funded through our grants program. And this is a drop-in center for youth throughout the region. This is hungry, cold, isolated, desperate youth. And they go there and they can access basic needs, navigator services, life skills workshop, hot lunches. And to me, it was surprising, it shouldn't have been, that there are a number of kids from Sooke show up that wash up at that front door in need. And of course, that's one of the key points around the mobile youth services team. And, you know, that this is a regional issue and all of us need to be contributing, I think, anyway. And we at the committee think that. Also, Yeah, I produced, as I do, I sit at that computer, I produced a blog entry on the district's 25th anniversary, which was on Saturday. There were two failed referendums, 1976 and 1991. And those referendums covered a much larger area that included Otter Point, Shirley, East Sooke, and those were defeated so that the incorporation team honed in on the current boundaries almost. They changed in 2005 or so to include parts of East Sooke. And the question back in 1999, are you in favor of the incorporation of Sooke as a municipality? 1439 in favor, 939 against, and 40% of voters turned out for that. So here we are, 25 years later.
Thank you.
Older, wiser,
Hopefully, definitely older.
improving by the day.
Counselor St. Pierre.
So I attended a busy meeting of the Intermunicipal Climate Action Task Force and got a lot more to report than usual. So it looks like the Environmental Committee for the CRD is planning on a new climate action plan. So that'll be coming up in the relative near future. Staff is putting together a backgrounder that should help define regional priorities and help define what's a regional priority versus a local focus. So, sort of what are we doing versus what they're doing. Also, hopefully identifying what our gaps might be and where the CRD might provide support. So more to come on that. The Energy Navigator program is doing well. They have new climate action kits and they encourage us to try the heat cameras because they're a lot of fun to play with. I think they're available through libraries. They're moving forward with the project for benchmarking buildings. This will mostly affect larger buildings in Victoria, like multi-units and so on and so forth. Don't know. I mean, it might affect a few buildings in Sooke, but by and large, they're just trying to move forward so they can get some numbers on what's the energy performance like of a particular building. Right now, there's very little out there for homeowners to judge by, which means that any programs that can actually provide, incentives, cash or whatever, don't really have much to go on. So they're trying to work on that piece. Director Al Wickham stepped forward and was discussing the need for a soil repository because right now, basically a lot of building projects are sending their soil into his jurisdiction, and they travel a long way. Says every second vehicle is a truck full of soil. That might be hyperbole. I'm not really sure, but he's saying that in order to actually protect the soil, conserve soil, and reduce pollution from all these trucks, we really need a soil repository that's maybe about halfway before you actually reach Jordan River. And so he's looking for greater awareness on all our parts and ideally support at some point. So there you go. I was interested to find out that several local governments in the South Island have actually put together specifically active transportation master plans using MOTT, M-O-T-T, active transportation grants. So, and this will be a question for the future. I'd love to know whether or not we're tapping into that. I was also interested to find out that Metchosin has passed a new ag plan. Finally, they're doing a huge amount of work at a staff level with the CRD with community mobilization. And they're trying to create better public messaging, more resources, and a more united voice. And they're doing some really good work in that direction. Other than that, I was not at the Santa Parade for the first time in 6 years. I was doing a choir performance. It was Christmassy. It was Christmassy. But unfortunately, I couldn't be in two places at once. I'm so very sorry I wasn't there.
Well, thank you everyone for your updates. Thanks to our deputy mayor just for stepping in to help with some of the media queries. I did CBC and CFAX and then Times Colonist and the Sooke News Mirror. And then there was just and then it's like, okay, like I'm not talking about this anymore. There's a million other things to focus on. We've made a decision and we have other things to do. So, but I do appreciate another, in this case, our deputy mayor just, okay, I need you to help out with some of these as well. So thank you very much for that. The South Island that we just talked about, Prosperity Partnership, did have Local Government Economy Day. So I was at a transit meeting in the first part of the morning and then went to that event the rest of the day. And again, it's just, you'll really enjoy being involved. The work that's being done to bring more clean industry here to the South Island and just all the work that's being done together within that group. So I really appreciate you stepping forward, both of you, to fill that up. Transit is announced today. It's ordered its new round of buses. So 125 buses have been ordered. And the funding has been received, 141 electric buses, including 121 heavy duty, 10 high capacity or double decker buses, 6 light duty. So the first ones are in the line of production. The first 10 to come into the Victoria system in early 2025. And then the others to begin improvements to the route. No, the double deckers are still diesel because of the weight and the capacity. That's my understanding, if I'm reading this right. And then within that, there is a motion that I brought forward to the Transit Commission, and it was an ask, and it was supported to look at ways to improve the transit service in and around, not just in and out of Sooke, but in and around Sooke. So transit will be doing some public engagement in the new year on this. It was supported by the commission, and just seeing if they can do different allocation to the routes. So we'll see what happens there. What helps is many transit staff live in Sooke and use the bus. So they are understanding this very well and taking the bus at different times and the like. I was unable to attend the Change the Narrative. It was my son's birthday, so it was important for me to be at home. An interesting discussion that's been occurring at CRD's regional parks and at the board is on the parking fees. So there has been a desire at the board to look for other ways to raise revenue for the maintenance of parks. Instead of just taxes, is the implementation of parking. So initially the CRD staff did bring out a report to the board about implementing pay parking in other regional parks, and that was defeated because of the desire to have equitable and attainable access to the parks. However, it then turned to, okay, well, there's already pay parking at Sooke Potholes and Thetis, so we'll increase those rates, of which I've been very vocal in opposition to, like, no. If you're going, I get that. And the revenue that would be generated would not just be to maintain the Sooke Potholes Park. It would be to then all the improvements in other parks. So why this area to pay more where the enjoyment and free access remains in place everywhere else? It just seemed unfair to me. So it became a split vote at the board. It's a weighted vote, so it's back for consideration on Wednesday, at which I will be speaking against as well. The argument was like, oh, well, it's so cheap, and you get all, I'm like, yes, but it's free everywhere else. So why do we have to pay more here? There was discussions about using transit. Well, it's impossible to use transit to get to the potholes. And it's not easy to even cycle there unless you're on the Goose. So for the majority of Sooke residents on this side, it's not easy to get to the potholes by transit or in any other means. You end up driving. And for many people, they make a day out of it. So to even have it change over and faster turnover, you're there for the day and you're in the water, and then you might get cold and move on. So it's interesting dialogue to follow for sure. So that's coming up. And then I was at the Destination Victoria Luncheon, which was great. I did see Miss Scott across the way, but it was very busy. There was a lot of people there, and it was well attended and just a nice celebratory event of what's occurring in the greater Victoria area. I also missed the Santa Parade in the time that 16 years. I've missed 3. And maybe one was 4 being COVID. I don't believe we had a parade, but it was when my son was born. Last year I got really sick and couldn't make it. I just didn't have the energy. And then this year, because of a sad loss in our family, there was a funeral service. And so it ended up with me needing to take my son to a hockey game as opposed to a father and son thing. So we braved the crowd of Swifties, not realizing at the time that all of these events were on the same time. But we used transit. It worked out fine. Children under 12 are free over there as they are here. And as the Canucks fan left the arena, the Swifties were arriving. So it was an interesting mix, but a very fun crowd on both sides. There's a lot of glitter on one side of the street and a lot of blue and green and black ice jerseys on the other side, but great crowd, very fun, and really nice to see that in that setting. My son loved it. I did as well. I think we're hooked now. So it's the life of a hockey mom, right? It's a lot of fun. And then it's just interesting with the Santa parade. So thank you everyone for your work on this, the changing of the route, because I think back that Santa parade used to be Saturday during the day. And then there were concerns that it was not good for the business community or different reasons. So it moved to Sunday during the day. And then that wasn't great either for many different reasons. So then the staging area used to go up Anna Marie by Home Hardware. So then that got moved to Sooke Elementary. And then it moved to the nighttime. And then that wasn't good either because for all sorts of reasons. And now we've changed the route. And it's like, I still receive letters upset about the movement of the route. And I'm like, I don't, either we have this parade or we don't. And I know we want to have this parade. So let's just make the most of it. Thanks to the Lions for their work and what they've done. As Wadhams builds out, it'll be really festive on that side of the road as well. And we make the most of it. So thanks everyone for going with it. But it's just interesting to see that no matter what we've done to try to appease someone, somebody else is very unhappy with whatever the change is. But I think it's important to have the parade.
Social
So,
media was
very,
very positive in the change.
well, that's good because the 3 letters I received were not pleasant.
Before the fact?
Before the fact and nothing after the fact, of course. But thank you everyone for your work. Again, all our staff, this is our last meeting of the year. So I just want to wish all of you, our staff, council, and members of the public for being here. A very safe and wonderful holiday season. There's a lot happening around town with solstice dinner planned as well as the solstice walk. So thank you to the community volunteers that are involved in these sorts of things. The businesses for all their decorations and for staying out late and all the other pieces that they're doing. Sea Park, our partner in recreation, is a lot of ice time coming on or pool time with different activities. And also many community partners for pictures with Santa from our fire crew or the breakfast with Santa. And then, of course, our fire rescue team that will be going collecting out in the streets with Santa for the Santa Run, which is next week. So a lot of different things happening. And also a reminder that the service for our late Premier John Horgan is held on Sunday at the Q Center in the Wanda Fuca Colwood area. It is open to the public. Recommend you get there early. I suspect it's going to be very busy. Yeah, or get tickets, I understand. Okay. So I'll leave it at that. And on that note, we will now call for a motion to adjourn the open portion and reconvene. Actually, it's quite long. That council close the meeting to the public pursuant to the following subsection of the community charter, the time being 9:08. 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the council considers the disclosure could reasonably expect it to harm the interests of the municipality. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And M, a matter that under another enactment is such that the public may be excluded from the meeting. So those are motions to close. If I can call for that by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Pearson. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Have a good night, members of the public. Thank you for your comments and for being here tonight.